and welcome back to ScavTalk, everyone. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing a little bit more drama-related stuff in the unheard of edition. That's still mostly, I think the community's kind of subsiding a bit, but there's definitely some still, the wounds are still very sore. So we'll recap on that. Followed by, we got some arena updates, a new patch, a feature that was highly requested has been implemented, so get you caught up on that. Gray Zone launch last week, or this week, today we're recording. We've been all over the place the last couple of recording sessions, so it's kind of crazy for me personally. But anyways, talk about that. Anything else? Otherwise, maybe if we got time, I'll ramble about Fallout New Vegas because I was watching the Fallout series and I've always wanted to mod or play Fallout New Vegas and heard a bunch of great things. I digress, but yeah.
That sounds good. No spoilers though, because I'm only on like episode 3.
So. Oh, all right, yeah. I was literally the reason why I'm late because I was finishing up an episode. I was like, I gotta see what happens.
Yeah, it's good. I've just like I've not had every time I want to try and something gets in the way and then I end up like watching it in like 15-minute bursts and I'm like, that's not really ideal. So yeah. Anyway, Fallout aside, which is quite fun so far. Fallout aside, despite the fact I've never played the games, by the way, I've never played any of them.
Oh really? I mean, honestly, me neither. Actually, when I think about it,
I had a chat with a friend and I was like, "Do you think it's worth?" And he was like, "The problem is, like, to get the full experience, you're gonna have to play like 200 hours of content." To then be like the guy who goes like, "Oh yeah, this and this and this," like to play like all the different games and explore all of them properly. It's like there's a lot, so don't worry, just watch it. It's fine. So I said, "Oh, okay, all right."
Oh, for like the show.
Yeah, for the show.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, to get all the like subtle stuff. But honestly, like so far, anyways, I don't want to get into a Fallout whole fan series discussion. But what I do want to talk about is, I guess chronologically speaking, the 4th Nikita post. This was what, on
2 days ago. It says it's at the 1st of May on Wednesday. It looks like, according to Reddit.
Mm-hmm. I think probably the last post from Nikita was on.
This was the last post. We're actually up to date right now.
Oh, are we? Okay.
We haven't had to skip over anything. You know, this is it. This is supposedly it.
Yeah. Did we read the fine print at the bottom? No. Okay. All right. So, I guess I'll just read it for everyone. Dear players. Well, let's start with the title. Okay. Clarification regarding additional features of different EFT editions. Dear players, we have come to the following conclusion regarding the list of changes and additions to the various editions of the game. Feel free to give your feedback. In bold, for owners of Edge of Darkness Edition, access to co-op PvE mode with persistent progression. Access will be given out in waves. We plan to start it tomorrow. Faster insurance return. Increased personal trader limits purchased by 20%. Increased starting PMC karma after it's implemented. Access to special stimulant craft. Increased charisma skill level. Nostalgia quest line. Unique PMC dog tag. Unique armband. Unique item call-in mechanics. Quotation marks. Legacy device. Ability call in a friendly BTR. Once called in, the item will go into cooldown. Unique PMC upper and lower clothing. Ability to replace 2 daily tasks per day for free. Ability to change nickname, icon, and color. For owners of the standard, Prepared to Escape, and Left Behind editions, increased stash size by 2 lines, ability to purchase access to PvE mode separately. For owners of the Unheard edition, unique radio electronic item, Mark of the Unheard, will be active only in PvE mode. Unique item distress signal device will be made available in both PvP and PvE modes. The item must be recharged in the hideout using high-end items. A $50 coupon for Escape from Tarkov purchase, additions, expansions, etc. for those who have upgraded from the Edge of Darkness to the Unheard edition with the old price. Access to Escape from Tarkov Arena for those who purchase the edition at full price. Unique PMC upper clothing, cultist jacket, unique PMC dog tag. Ability to change nickname, icon, and color. For owners of all editions other than the Unheard edition, ability to obtain the item Mark of the Unheard and a strike signal device through in-game quests. Ability to attain expanded PMC pockets through in-game quests for owners of all editions other than Edge of Darkness. God, I feel like I need a flowchart. Ability to obtain the legacy device through in-game quests. Ability to replace 1 daily task per day for free. The ping limit for PvE mode will be removed for all editions. Wasn't aware of that. We will inform you in advance about the order and time of appearance of all these changes. Thank you and have a great day, dev team.
So the thing about this, right? It's not awful. It's not that awful. But the one thing that made everybody just kind of go, huh? Was the final clarification on, like, 'cause they'd said about legacy device before for EOD, and they never said anything about it. And everyone was like, call in the BTR? But why? Like, why? What is this? This is just really strange. So that's kind of the new piece of information, I guess, rather than adjusting other things that they decided on previously that they're changing because everybody hates it. That's probably the biggest kind of like zinger in there, just in terms of confusion and like what is going on. The other stuff, like most of the for owners of this, for owners of that, for owners of the other, is just like going around in circles to clarify that the Mark of the Unheard, like radio scav device thing, will not be in PvP, which we did want both these things to be only in PvE, really. But like even the Mark of the Unheard ended up not being that bad because of the like scav, like you lose scav coverage, you shoot scavs while you've got it and stuff, which like wasn't said so at the beginning. And if it had been, then maybe people wouldn't have cared so much. And then the rest of it's just like, yeah, you can get Mark of the Unheard and the distress signal to a quest for everybody, but you get it straight away with Unheard. You can get legacy device that you get straight away with the OD. You can get that on all the other editions too, and the same thing with the pockets. So there's nothing now other than cosmetics, I think, that you can't get in terms of like items, which is important. I don't think there's any like items that are only available for like one particular package, if that makes sense. So I think everyone is able to get the legacy device and Mark of the Unheard and distress signal and the pockets, because except for obviously the owners of the packages that get it straight away. So like this is obviously better. A lot of what people's problems were with this in general, and I still agree, is like the random pay to win stuff. It's not even necessarily like pay to. It's like no more pay to, like the community like divided itself into a few different ways here, right? A lot of people crying about pay to win, but there's a growing piece of the community which is just going like, well, everybody complaining about pay to win. EOD was already pay to win, so like, why does everybody like now suddenly worrying about pay to win or whatever? But I think it's because we've had the EOD versus standard difference for all eternity, and that was kind of like that was the thing, right? You bought into the game like all the way back in the day when EOD was available, and it's always been like that. So whether it's pay to win or not, like the community doesn't care, and that's ultimately what matters here. Whether the community cares or not, whether it's pay to win or not, right? Remember that time where I made a video that like blew up because they changed the way that the quest structure worked, but because of the quirks of like the different trader threshold levels, it meant that EOD got a massive boost and didn't have to do anything with Skier, and everybody was like up in arms, and they changed it. So like
they did change it?
Yeah, because they changed it really quickly, because they changed, like it was on one of the big patches, like I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. And yes, you could basically I think you could get to Peacekeeper without doing, but you either like didn't have to do the PMC killing task or something like that. You could like skip something basically, just because of the way that the
like flash drives.
Maybe it was flash drives. It was something like that. Or maybe it was flash drives actually. Maybe you're right. But anyway, so like even all the way back then, right? Like something came in to widen the gap between standard edition. I should know. I made the damn video. I probably had flash drive in the actual thumbnail. Made a lot of vids.
You made a lot of vids, so
but like
you get a pass in my book.
Stretching the gap between standard and EOD caused community outcry then. Whereas people just kind of accepted it the way it was. So that's the thing. Like adding faster insurance return, personal trader limits increased by 20%. More PMC starting karma. God help us if that ever gets implemented. The special stimulant crafted increased charisma skill level. like no one cares about this stuff, and like I don't think really any EOD owners actually want this, because this is coming to people who've already paid for the benefits to EOD. It's not like it's a little bit different to people who saw the benefits from Unheard, thought, "Oh, that sounds cool," and then bought it like the other day. Like most people with EOD have had it for years, so we don't suddenly need 20% extra trader purchase limit. Now, I did actually make a video about this whole thing, and I did say there that it doesn't like, does it matter that much? Like fast insurance return, like hardly matters. The increased personal trader purchase limit doesn't really matter now they've got rid of global limits. It would have been a big deal before, but now global limits have gone away. It just means you don't have to go in quite as many times to like buy the stuff. PMC Karma, who the hell knows? Special stimulant craft. I mean, it depends what it is. If it's just rubbish, then it won't matter. If it's like goated, then like, that'll be annoying. And charisma skill also doesn't really do much. So like it's kind of whatever. But it's just the fact that they're there that like needles people. Like why? Just leave it out. Like EOD people don't need this. Why bother? I guess the only other one is like to replace one extra daily task. I do actually think that it's quite a good quality of life thing to have a daily task be skippable for free per day. I think that's actually quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming to everybody. EOD gets 2 of them for some unknown reason, but everybody gets 1. This is good because like I don't like skipping tasks and having to like pay rep and stuff. Like you can min max it, you can ride the line and blah blah blah. I just don't really care to do it. So knowing that I could do one for free is actually pretty decent. I quite like that as an idea. And then like a little bit of extra stash line for the standard account people. Like I think most of the stuff here, in terms of the actual game, most of the stuff is resolved. I think like we've got through like 95% of it. There's still some like hangover from, as I said, about like the pay to win elements, about the unwillingness to kind of backtrack on some of these things, but they put themselves in an annoying spot based on like how they actually rolled this out in the first place. So I don't know. Like we're probably at a stage where we can continue. We can continue from this point, and it won't be really that impactful. But it's just still confusing from a philosophical perspective as to why they did some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, well, on that note, I had a thought as you were, kind of going into this and, asking the question why some of these things, like just why. And I wonder if, because like a lot of this stuff for EOD specifically wasn't ever mentioned. I mean, correct if I'm wrong. It wasn't until like Backlash started happening that Nikita started like throwing freebies, like,
Yeah.
but not PvE, but like anything but PvE, right? And then eventually we got here. And I wonder if in Nikita's eyes, if the outrage was interpreted as, what about us day one supporters? Where's our, we want free shit, like, and Nikita's interpretation that leads to giving all this like random miscellaneous perks to like satisfy the edge of darkness, but then the community is like, no, like why? Like no one ever said anything about this ever. The BTR being called in, which like sounds like a really cool thing, but like why restrict it to one account? And like why? Like there's so many whys, and to me this might be the only thing I could rationalize is from Nikita's point of view. Maybe he's just thinking they just want a bunch of handouts, or something. I'll just give them random shit.
Yeah. I mean, he misread that entirely, right?
If that's the case, I don't know if that is, but that's
I don't know. But yeah, it's funny. Like Spinman says in chat here, something which is very valid, right? Which is a lot of people have asked about the whole way through this. Like, who even asked for PvE in the first place, right? Like, BSG
a lot of people
always said they weren't going to, but like, BSG said they were never going to. Actually, that is fair. A lot of people did want PvE. Most people have gone to SPT, but the BSG said they were never going to do it, and I don't know why they decided to spend the time on the resources on this now, rather than doing it as like, even as a free to EOD and as a paid DLC, like after the game has been made. I don't know. Maybe they're like, oh, we're bottlenecked on something, and so let's work on this. We may as well. I don't know. You never know, right? Like maybe they're stuck on some other part, but it just seems like maybe a waste of resources or whatever when it's like not part of the core game. Especially given Nikita's like, oh, we need to cut like some of these cool features to release the game, because he said that before, right? He said, we have to make a decision on what to bring and what not to bring. I feel like PvE mode's probably quite low down the list at this point. You would think. So I don't know. Like, no, I do understand why people want PvE. Of course, there's lots of people that do, and there's a market for it. But it's kind of already done with SPT and done like way better than anything BSG could probably pull off. And I know now they've said they're going to do mod support, but it's then kind of a bit like, why didn't they just like add SPT to the game then instead? As like the why make their own? You know, I don't know. It's
Well,
all a bit weird.
I mean, I can answer that: to make money.
Yeah, true.
And even though it's maybe, low on the priority list, the amount of actual raw work you put in is probably not that much, like in comparison to, I don't know, implementing a new armor system. I
Yeah,
would
true.
imagine. I mean, because what they literally did is like it's like the same game. There's like obviously back end server stuff to, connect people up, but they just added random spawns with PMC AI, like effectively raiders, and that's basically it. The game functions
Yeah.
exactly 1-to-1. Like you quest, you do everything the same. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine to be a massive undertaking, So I don't know. That's the only thing I could say is like it's just got to be money, and why money? I don't know.
For whatever reason, right? Yeah, to stop the
Hmm.
company going under, or to make them like extra, multimillionaires, whatever. Like
But
both
it
reasons are sort of valid, but like if you do it in a bad way, people are going to have backlash.
but it
Like
is
there's no shame to like wanting to make more money, right? Like fundamentally, really, as long as you're making stuff that people like.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's a
If you're just
yeah.
like, oh, we want more money, so we're going to make this like cool feature and then release
Mhm.
it, and people are like, oh, that's poggers, and then they pay for it. Like that's fine. No, in my eyes, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, really. It's just the fact that, yeah, like we're now adding features that are paid for to a game that's not even released and then trying to carve it out of DLC. Like, this is where the whole thing came from. Like, just fundamentally, and the way it's been done is just bad, right? If it was
Yeah.
done post release and we ended
Well,
up, oh, it's been given to EOD and it's now you can pay for it as a standard account person because you were never promised DLC, I think everyone would have been like, yeah, cool, go for it.
yeah. I guess that's my problem is, it's fine to make a living, but like the money aspect, there's a I should have sent you this video, but I'm gonna pull up Paint. Okay, I'm sorry. I maybe I should pull up the video, but I can't even remember the technical term. But you know, from Linus Tech Tip, the editor, who's no longer an editor. Man, what's his name?
The guy who
Taryn?
does like
Is it
the podcast
Taryn?
thing with or
No,
someone.
not Luke. Taryn, yeah. Anyways, he had a video recently where he like talked about YouTube stuff and like
Mm.
sort of like lice. I think it was like his college. Like he went to his college and like talked to the students. Anyways, so he drew up this. I'm gonna draw up a horrible chart. So it's essentially just three squares connected to each other, right? And on the left is like I think it's money. Okay, I'm just gonna draw symbols here. So you got a dollar here. So on the two left squares, top and bottom, there's a money symbol, and on the type is like, we'll say morally good, and then on the right we'll say morally evil. So it's like when you look at it, it's like if your only motivation is money, you don't really care about. I feel like maybe I got this wrong. I probably should just pull it up. Anyways, that's kind of my what I'm trying to get at here is if they it's like yes, you're exactly right. How they did it and went about it was completely wrong. And if the only motivation for them was money, you know what I mean? It's not like we're gonna make this PVE mode because we think it's really cool. Really, I like this. Whatever.
Mm.
It may have just been like, things are going bad. I need a new Lamborghini or what. I don't, I don't, I don't know. But let's just slap in the PVE stuff. I know we said we're never gonna do it, which is like so weird that you mentioned that as well. It's just so weird that they had like such a strong anti PVE stance, and then suddenly just out of nowhere it's there. I don't know,
Yeah.
man. But overall, I just to like tie it back into the pay to win stuff. I think what you said is true. I think the culture for this was um kind of like set in stone. Like this is how things are. Because if you look at some of the history, there was I think this was actually in the Veritas video, History of Tarkov, where like early on there was like some pushback against the like people were criticizing heavily the pay to win elements of like the additions of the counts,
Mm,
and I think there was like one like press or like gaming company that did like an article, and it was like a very small
right.
one, like maybe like a I don't know. And BSG did not take kindly to that, and they like mocked him, and like I guess other people in the community mocked him, and they put in like a meme backpack because their complaint was something like this edition gets you this bigger backpack, which is like pay to win. So there was a meme item where it was like an MBSS and it had like a giant grid that you could put something. It was like pay to win backpack. Yeah, the MBSS. There's some really old school people in here. So
Yeah, there was one with there was that one had like one. There was like one with one slot, like literally just one
was that what it
square.
was?
I
Okay.
think so. Yeah.
So point being is we sort of as a collective decided we're okay with this, even though at least in my eyes like it's technically paid to like not like paid to like Candy Crush I think has a mechanic where you can literally just like hit send 99 cents to beat this level and go on the next, because I guess people just like doing puzzles, and if they're stuck at a puzzle, you just want to skip and go to the next one. Anyways, that's like literally pay to win. But I feel like any advantage to me is like you're paying for an advantage, so it's like helping you. What even playing field? What is even playing field? Existential crisis. Anyways,
Yeah, it's complicated. That
yeah,
topic's just like muddy because there's I have better bullets than you because I bought them and so you die.
hmm
Versus I have a larger stash and I have more money and more resources at the beginning with higher trader rep, which means I can buy gear slightly earlier, which gives me a higher survival rate, which gives me an easier chance of surviving quests, which
hmm
means I level faster than you, which means that when we meet in raid, I have better gear than you do. That's the argument of the pay to win for EOD and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it is. I mean, it's like it's on the scale of 0 to 100, right? It's just like where it fits on the scale. I don't know, but
yeah,
it's on there somewhere, right? It has an implied pay to win effect, but because it depends on who you meet, like where you are, whatever, you don't see 762 by 59 BS gold on the death screen. You can't tell, and so it doesn't feel as impactful as something
yeah.
where you actually like buy the thing.
That's
But
very true.
it's paid to be better than like somebody else who's got the same like same hours, same gear. If you put me against me with EOD, whatever, I'll have more progression and whatever on the
hmm
EOD version of me. And when we meet, I'll have better stuff. I will. And so it means that then again in Tarkov, it doesn't always mean that you're going to win, right? It's like you've
Right.
then got that
Yeah.
survivor rate chance bias. It's like it's a percentage on a percentage, assuming everything's
But
even, but it's an advantage, of
yeah,
course.
yeah. It's like you
Yeah,
start with more resources. The game doesn't like give you aimbot. You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not the type of advantage we're talking about. But
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
just to dig in, tie it back all in. It's been this is the way it's been for like almost 10 years, and then suddenly out of nowhere it's like new mechanic exclusive to one edition only. Also, other new mechanic exclusive to this one edition only. Also, no one's getting this, definitely not DLC game mode. It's just like
Yeah.
what's going on? So,
Exactly. It was like pay to win was bad anyway, and then the DLC game mode thing was just like fundamentally just not right.
mhm.
Which is why everything blew up so much. I mean, if it'd been just been pay to win stuff, I don't know really.
People
People
would
would
have
have
been
been
upset,
upset.
but I
Yeah,
don't think people
definitely.
would have been like as unanimous. Like
Like
it
this was
feels
proper.
like
Get the torches and pitchforks. We're burning this
yeah,
thing to the
oh
ground
yeah,
level,
oh
right?
yeah. I mean, this was probably like 5% of the Tarkov eco space was like, it's not a big deal, you guys, and like half of that 5% is just like trolls and like edgelords. But I bought the edition. Nikita's just pranking you guys. You guys
Yeah,
aren't true believers like me.
exactly. So staying on this topic, I guess, before we like
hmm
move on to the other bits, then we should probably because I think it's just easier if we do that. Nikita then, so we haven't heard anything since this until last night or like yesterday, whenever it was. I'm not sure exactly when. And there was an arena, I think it was yesterday afternoon actually. There was an arena stream done by BSG. I don't really know what the point of it was. Maybe it was just kind of celebrate the new patch or whatever, which we'll go through in a moment. But the most important part about it was that Nikita turned up on that kind of panel to talk about a few things, mostly to talk about Arena. But obviously, the chat was just, relentless, as has its right to be.
Confession. I clicked in the
Yeah.
stream just to see the chat.
Hmm.
I went to see.
I mean, it was more unhinged at the beginning, I would say.
Mhm.
And like from halfway through onwards, it was, I don't know. I wonder whether it was like more demoralizing. Like, I wonder what's more demoralizing, to see just like walls of spam, or whether to see people like genuinely upset. Because the second half, like the spam had kind of gone. They'd like, the mods had like fished out all the spammers. Whereas the second set, it was just like people who were just like genuinely upset writing in there and like asking him for whatever. Now I've kind of got some summary from bits and pieces of this, like, because it was out of the 2.5 hours. Like, so I actually would recommend people to go and watch Very Bad Scav's video on it if you want to see just the highlights of what Nikita said about this situation, because a lot of it, like a good portion of it, is Nikita talking in Russian, and another set of it is him talking about Arena, right? So there's only about like 5 segments where he actually is like directly referencing what's going on. And I did also go and watch Axel's video, because again, like a lot of it was in Russian. So I think his stream had it translated, but I didn't watch the whole thing. But I've just like watched his YouTube video and seen a few extra bits, like filled in a few extra pieces that that otherwise may have been missed. But basically, in no particular order, basically, a good piece of good news. He said the Tarkov TV is coming in May, so we'll see what that, sometime this month. So we'll see what that brings. The next wipe actually is not all that far away. That, like, I don't know, end of next month or something. So it could even just be a month and a half away. Probably long enough for things to at least like settle down at that point, I would have thought. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out. And that they started rolling out the PvE mode to EOD accounts. I did actually check mine. I haven't had mine. I don't know exactly like what order. It's just random. I don't know. Probably the same as the Arena rollout. I think like the only slightly awkward thing about the PvE rollout is that it kind of reminds people about the Arena rollout, and then reminds them that the Arena rollout was also like very badly managed. So it's kind of like almost a reminder of the previous situation, which seems very tame now in comparison. But otherwise, apparently, in 2 weeks, hopefully everyone will be able to get access, supposedly. So like, but people are getting it now. That's what they've said. And then this is like more stuff about Arena. Maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, so he said that basically like all DLCs in the future definitely coming to EOD. Like, he basically just said a few things that people needed him to say, regardless of whether people actually believe him or not now. Like, I don't know. Like, a lot of people still think that they're going to try and pull some other stuff in the future. If they have whatever desires for more money, either financial stability of the company or just, greed/profit, like whatever. That's probably not gone away, right? So I think people are very skeptical that they're actually going to do this stuff. And but anyway, so he said, for what it's worth, all the DLCs are definitely coming to EOD. The situation has, basically changed their mind about like how they think about this stuff. And there's not going to be any other versions with other than Unheard. Unheard is like the last one. They're not going to do anything else there. There was like there's definitely some questions about like the pay to win stuff. Like, someone asked in chat, like, why did you decide to release a pay to win edition of the game instead of focusing on releasing cosmetic purchases? And it's unfortunate the way that the question was kind of posed, because Nikita basically was just like, oh, it's not pay to win now. Like, we've fixed it. Like, we've made it better. Like, go and read the stuff. If you still think it's pay to win, then I don't know what to tell you. But just believe me. Like, when the stuff comes out, and if something's terrible, then we'll change it. But I don't know. It's what he said, at least. That's what he said. Basically, they'll just like monitor PvP, and if there's an issue, they'll fix it. But that it isn't that isn't pay to win anymore. Supposedly you will be able to wipe your PvE account at some stage. They'll have to like add the ability to do that in. And then there was like a lot of people are asking about an apology, and I just don't think that Nikita really knows. He's either just doesn't want to apologize in the way that people want him to, or he doesn't understand what they mean, or like, I don't know whether it's a language barrier thing. I'm not really sure, just a cultural thing. I've no idea. But like, in my mind, he hasn't apologized the way that people want him to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually not as fussed about that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't really care as much about that in particular. Like for me, it's kind of like, okay, fine. I think he needs to prove himself with actions now. I don't care what he says
Mm-hmm.
particularly. But the part of the video where he talks about that, he basically says, look, feel free to play other games, I guess. It's, you know, it's not an obligation. It was never an obligation for anything related to the game. It didn't force you to do anything, which like whatever. Tactically speaking, it could have been done, yeah, more fluently, more generally. But yeah, I kind of underestimated the whole thing. So yeah, I hope it will be good in the future. At least, as I said, we'll force ourselves. We'll carry on. We'll do whatever it takes to release the game. So that part was, and as I said, go watch Very Bad Scouts bit if you want to see like that little clip. But that's probably the most genuine that I've seen him talking about it, being like, you know, I underestimated the whole thing. Basically, like that's, I think that's as good as we're gonna get.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
the rest of it is just a classic, like, you know, I'm sorry for the situation in the community. Like, there's a few others as well where he's like, sorry for the situation in the community. I'm, you know, sorry to have so much, you know, drama or whatever in the community,
mm,
rather than being like, I'm sorry for doing the stupid thing, right? Which is really what a lot of people were asking for him to do it. It's just, oh man, it's just like it feels like it would have been so easy, but maybe I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not easy for him for whatever reason. Right? As I said, like cultural or just ego, or I have no idea. But I think some people will never be happy with like the way he said it. Um, he did look kind of, you know, he did look kind of remorseful, saying I underestimated the whole thing. But as a lot of people have said, it's more of a, like the apology and the way that things have gone now is more like, you know, I'm sorry that it that everybody took it so badly.
mm-hmm.
Being like, you know, in the same position, knowing what he knew then, he probably would still do the same thing. I think that's probably the difference. It's like if you go, you know, looking back, like with the information that I had available to me at the time, I really should have known that it wasn't going to go well and it would have been bad or whatever. And I made a mistake and I screwed it up and we're trying to fix it. Like that's different to being like, yeah, I'm sorry that the community blew up. I'm sorry that the situation happened. Like I don't know, maybe there's a fine line and there's a cultural difference, which means that us Westerners just aren't like, we don't really buy that. I don't know. I'm not sure. Hard for me to say. I can't say either way. Anyway, people are still not really um, satisfied with the answer, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best we're gonna get.
Yeah, probably. I think for me that was immediately what stuck out was like as you said, I think he is sincerely sorry that of the situation. I mean, what's his exact wording here? I wish I had it written down. I don't think I do.
Mm.
Um, or you do rather. But anyways, um, yeah, I think it's kind of like did you have a rebel? Were you like a little rebel rouser in your youth or
A what
teens?
now?
A little rebel, you know, like a rebellious phase, you know.
Um,
Well, doesn't really matter.
not really.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm pretty, you know, I've always
Hmm.
been kind of, you know, teacher's pet, whatever, like school prefect.
Yeah,
I'm very compliant. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
I guess I'll just use a you know a makeup example on the spot. But like, imagine like a kid like steals something, and I mean this kid is like just a little shit, right? Like maybe it's like a friend of your family, you know, a child of your friends, and it's like that one kid who's just like constantly causing shit, constantly
Mm,
getting at the shit. Like they're just a little, you know, and they get caught stealing something, and then they're like, they apologize and say they're sorry, you know, but deep down, what they're really saying is, I'm not sorry that I stole this thing from this person. I'm sorry that I got caught, you know, and that's how it feels to me. Like Nikita, he's saying,
mm,
I'm sorry that we have to deal with this situation, you know, and it's
yeah.
like, that's not at all what people want. I mean, the only thing I will say that, like, you know, he gets like a corner piece of a star, you know, out of 5 stars, is at the end. He said something like, you know, oh man, what did he say? It's something like he messed, like
Well, yeah,
he,
maybe it was what I was saying before, but we said like, yeah, I kind of underestimated the whole thing.
yeah, yeah.
That was like the
I
most genuine, most sincere.
yeah, I think that's like, like it's like a half acknowledgement for me. But it's like missing more components. But it's like he has enough, leadership or whatever to like acknowledge that he messed up, but in a way, like it's like he underestimated. Like it's almost an insult. Like I didn't anticipate this to happen. Like you guys to freak out. It's how it all feels. I don't know. It's just again, it's for me. It's like I'm just whatever at this point. Like I've already like been kind of like checking out of Tarkov. Like at this point, I just want to see 1.0 if we ever get to see it. Like whatever I get, I get. What I have is the good times, Patch basically pre-patch 12.12 was like the golden age. I hate to be that person, but that was some of the best Tarkov. Honestly, it was like such a half season because it was like transitioning once they did like Found and Raid. So there was like so many changes. There was like so many good things too, but then also like bad things. Like I don't know. Anyways, nostalgia over.
Indeed. So yeah, I mean that's basically it. Go and watch the Robot Scav video if you want to see like all of the little snippets. Like it's important, I think, if you're like invested in the story of like what's been going on, to see Nikita's response, like, and see him say the things, because you kind of get a understanding of like where he's coming from. But I don't know, like he was pretty touchy with chat, I would say. People were asking stuff and he was just kind of like exasperated and being like, oh, why do people keep asking him
Yeah.
about the same thing over and over and blah blah? He was getting like, he was clearly
He
rattled.
was flustered. And it's
Yeah.
like that's the annoying part is like when he's like apologizing that people are flustered like for the situation. He's like, "Oh, I didn't want to have to deal with the situation. I just wanted to scam a bunch of my customers. I just want to fleece you guys. Come on, let me fleece you." I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a legitimate grift, but it feels like a bit of a grift. So I'm not too keen on Nikita anymore, personally.
Yeah. So yeah, the other like associated thing to do with this was the arena patch which came through. The most important part about this is that they added, and they talked about this as well, so I'll like go through some of the things that they were talking about there. Is they added this new game mode called Last Hero. So I know like the arena's almost like a bit of a meme at this point because of like how few people watch it. Like no one really streams the game, and very few people are watching it. Like the tournaments are few and far between. Like I don't think BSG put enough of them on. I think like one thing that kind of hurts it is a lot of people just put Escape from Tarkov when they are streaming it. So the Escape from Tarkov arena category, it's actually annoying to get back and forth between the two. Like I forget like all the time to actually just, I mean, even when I play Grey Zone, sometimes I like forget to take Escape from Tarkov out of the box. So, people just can't be bothered to put arena in there. So I think that makes the numbers look even worse. But even still, right, there's not that many people watching it, not that many people streaming it. But Last Hero mode, which they've brought through, which is now it's unranked only. Deathmatch between several players. The goal is to get the most kills in the time period. At the beginning of the match and after each death, players will be able to change the equipment preset and instantly return to battle. After 10 minutes, the match ends. Players are ranked based on the number of kills they have accumulated. So it's basically just a deathmatch. It's a 10-minute timer, and you just kill as many people as you can. And when you die, like you get the preset list again. So there's kind of two things you can do. You can either like skip, you can just skip the sort of preset like post kill green, whatever it is, and just go back in, or you can press F. It took me a minute to actually figure it out. You can like press F, I think it is, and then it opens up the preset menu, and you have another 10 seconds. I don't know why they gave you such a short timer to pick the next preset, because I haven't actually played Arena for a while, and I haven't played since they got rid of the tier 1 kits. So I was like, oh god, I don't even know which kit does what. Like not off the top of my head. I kind of didn't realize it would be so quick. So I was just kind of like picking random kits that are from memory. So it's like, oh, I think this one has 5.6A1, like pick that and blah blah blah. But I played 2 rounds of it. Like it's the arena game mode that I wanted the whole time. You can go in, it's unranked. I don't even know if the stuff actually costs money in unranked. Maybe I'm not even sure. Like I didn't really check. But you just go in, you just blast stuff, and you run around, and every time you die, you just respawn, and it's very quick to respawn in, and you just pick a different kit every time. You can change your kits around depending on what people are using. One guy had the PKM. That was very funny. That works very, very well in this mode because you don't have to reload. So I died to that quite a few times. And I was actually really, really god-awful as well because unbeknownst to me, I didn't actually set up Grey Zone Warfare properly when I first started playing it. And I haven't really played Tarkov for I was away for a week. And then Grey Zone came out, and I was doing the playtest, and then they went, "Oh, the Grey Zone's out." So then I played Grey Zone as well. I played like literally like one raid in Tarkov through one grenade, and then I've only played Grey Zone. So after like basically like the longest time I've ever taken away from Tarkov, after 3 weeks, I came back and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like my sensitivity in Grey Zone is actually just like not what I used to play with at all. Like I've actually just ruined my muscle memory, and I was terrible. I was really bad, but it was quite fun. You know, nearly went 1-1. Like very very rusty at this point, but either which way, it's good fun actually. It's quite good. So if you do just want to go in and blast and run around and kill people, Last Hero is the game mode for you. Like it's as I said, it's the one that I think should have been there. Should have been there the whole time. Really, it's just a classic deathmatch, and you just kill people, and it's good for just fighting again and again and again and again and again. Even more than like regular arena, obviously, because you have to wait between deaths. So you can practice like one thing and not worry about it, because it's also unranked too. So like I'm just kind of whatever. So I'm like, well, let's practice, corner peeking, or let's practice, using this particular weapon, or whatever, right? Like trying to aim for headshots with a lower powered ammo, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So I think that's quite good. They did like a few other things, adding like the base inertia and aim punch stuff that came to the base game, some penetration rework stuff, making the cleanup crew a bit more fair, and then some balancing changes within the actual presets. But to be honest, like I can't remember what they've even done at this point, because they were in, they're all tier 2 and 3 presets. So probably nobody really cares. There was a couple of things that they spoke about on the stream about that, which was that I think the next patch 1. So this is 1. Was this 1.7? Yeah, this is 1.7. So 1.8, that's going to be the one that links the two games together.
Okay.
So the next patch for Arena Spot is the one that everybody's been waiting for Arena, which would be kind of cool. I think you're going to play, from what Axel was saying, because I didn't hear them talk about this, because I did actually listen to the stream and kind of flicked all the Russian parts. So they must have been talking about this in Russian. Was that apparently, because everybody now has like level 30 skills in Arena for every match to make it even. So when you level your endurance and strength skills in Arena, once the link comes in, that XP will transfer to your main PMC, apparently. So it won't level your Arena character, but it'll level your like main Tarkov character, because now the Arena stats have all been, normalized between characters.
So it's a one-way?
So it's one way, I think.
Oh, so everyone's locked at 30, and then but you still gain EXP because the EXP system exists, and it just like pipes it over to main
I think
game.
so. That's what it sounded like. Yeah. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what Axel said. As I said, I didn't hear that in the stream myself. Maybe I could have skipped over it quickly and not realized, but that's what he said. But we'll see. We'll see. And that they are going to be adding the search and destroy type mode, and then also custom presets are coming as well. It's going to have meta points. You have a budget of meta points, so you can pick like what to have. But they're going to keep the existing presets for beginners because it's easier. I mean, yeah, that's basically the way it should have been to begin with, right? Like they should have had search and destroy to start with. They should have had free for all mode. You should have been able to build your own kits, and the existing presets should just have been there when you first start. That's basically how it should have been all the way back when it launched, which is unfortunate, because I think they've missed their opportunity. But there's redemption arcs for many games these days. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think so, but who knows? We'll see. And I think that was it of the interesting stuff that they talked about there. Yes, that was it for Arena, at least. That was it for Arena. There was there's only one other thing that I wanted to just go back to that I'd written down, was about people asking about running the PvE mode for the base game on your own computer, and basically said oh no, we can't do that because we'd have to re-engineer all the infrastructure to add that mode, and that's even more work. Which I did see quite a lot of comments. People being
that would require too much work.
Yeah, people being just damn, to have to sell something, to have to work, do some work to make some money for a product, whatever. Wow, that'd be way too much. I did see a few comments like that about it, but it's kind of I don't know. Maybe if they can include mods, then maybe we can just get the SPT in there or something to fix it. But it's as you said, it's an easy lift, right? They've just gone, oh, we just make the base game, and when you match, it just matches you with nobody on our servers. So it's no real difference they have to make. Yeah.
Yep. We gotta cut costs somewhere. Yeah. I mean, I don't really talking about it, but it just feels so relevant, and I really want to talk about it. Is there are at least, as of that I know of, 2 different. These are not official. Okay, this is not like this is no. Okay, by both BSG and SPT. SPT
Mm.
is strictly offline play. They don't want to deal with anything because it's like they become an even bigger problem. But there are at least 2 cooperative mods, that effectively do what PvE Tarkov is trying to do and more, which is kind of crazy to me because one of them that I was looking at, it has like its own unique mods,
No.
where it's got like a ping system implemented, and you can like ping the doors, like ping open, go to that door, ping, there's loot there. It's kind of crazy, and it's even like got UI, like if you want health bars above PMC, just you can have that. Anyways, I just think it's crazy you say that because yeah, it's like that was kind of one of my first things. Is like, why did they not do like peer to peer? Like if
Yeah.
you connect to me and then I don't know. So, anyways, yeah, I don't want to like turn this into one giant poop on Nikita. Oh, I just remind myself. Scratch that. I'm gonna take a big now. What I wanted to say earlier, Nikita, what he did say that I did give him a singular corner piece of a star for was that he said, "Do not direct your anger towards the devs, direct it towards me," which I'm all on board for. Good for you, Nikita. That's a way to stand up and be that big manly bear shield for do your part, big man. Sorry. What were we talking about beforehand?
We're talking about PvE
PvE. Yeah. Anyways,
and Arena before that.
it's just kind of insulting that you brought that up because it's like, God, people have already done this.
Yeah, no,
Anyways,
it's like it's already been done, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the seal is broken on SPT, so if I don't like, who knows what their stance is on these things anymore? If people are going to be making, co-op, whatever, like, who knows what's going to happen? But it's kind of a funny one to like be like, oh, the server costs, it costs so much, like, oh, but the work to make it on your own computer, like, oh, it's too much. It's just like, come on, like, either like be happy about paying for the servers or like pay the time and opportunity cost for the people to do the work to make it offline. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I hope this is the end of the BSG drama.
Yeah, I don't really want to keep talking about it.
Yeah, at this point, it basically is what it is, and like I'm kind of bored of it, and we just like I'm at the stage where it's just like I'm gonna probably go back and play some Tarkov soon. This isn't gonna break the game the way that it is. We'll just let it roll out, and we'll just carry on with our lives. And people who don't like it can just never play the game again, and that's fine. And do that. Like it's okay. It's okay to not want to play. But I think even those of us that do play, you're still obviously allowed to be like distrustful. A lot of us are now just going to discount what's said. And it's like, oh, we're going to make a whole like mod suite. We have to integrate the mod. That's like, is that ever coming? Like, I think beforehand, people really would like, list out people like, originally Nice Guy, but lots of other people being like, here's all the things Nikita has said that's coming in a big list.
Oh yeah.
All of this stuff. And these are kind of the things they've said. And then like, oh, it's officially been scrapped, this thing, or it's officially coming, blah, 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 blah. I think all of that is now just a big cloud of whatever. So it's like, okay, do what you need to do. Bring on 1.0. We'll play the game. Like, just bring whatever you're going to bring.
Yeah,
I think that's sort of where a lot of us sit now. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure the people feel the same way. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I mean, if you, listen, at the end of the day, you bought a product, you got a product. I don't have to love or hate the company. So, like, if you want to keep playing the game, keep playing the game. If you don't want to play the game, don't play the game. I am at least able to separate BSG from their product. I mean, yes, they're involved in it and they make decisions around it because it is technically live service. But point being is, as you said, it is what it is. I just wouldn't really encourage people to, I don't know, attack each other like, oh my God, you're playing the game, cringe, or vice versa. Please support my favorite video game and play the game, guys. Stream it now. Streamers, what are you doing? No, they can't finish the game unless you. All right. The thing I wanted to show was someone posted this in the ScavTalk Discord. And I thought this was really cool. Which is I guess it's a Tarkov promise tracker, which like it's actually kind of funny that this was made for Tarkov the video game. But anyways, this is a completely, as far as I understand, this is a completely crowdfunded project, right? And it's like, okay, if we go here, I actually went and looked for your thing, Giga.
Which one?
Your post on Reddit.
My turn rates one.
Yeah, your turn rates. That's what it was.
The one where they said the turn rates would be removed.
Yeah, it's in here.
Is it?
So there's tons of stuff. I mean, you can look through. You can even see ones that were like promises that were fulfilled. And there's one for compromises and testing. But I think this is an excellent resource. There's like sources in here. You can submit stuff. Yeah,
quite good.
Very cool stuff.
Quite good. Yeah, especially if everything's like referenced and sourced.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, that's quite good.
Boom. For defibrillators, Nikita interview, hideout cats. Yeah. Because I will say, one thing about Nikita in general that I felt weary about is he was like a little too loosey-goosey with like, Q&A stuff. Like, will you add X gun to the game? Yes, of course, it'll be added. All the guns you all love will be added. And it's like, is he serious? Is he just saying that? Like, I'm not saying that if they don't add my favorite gun, it's the end of the world, but the principle is you feels like you're a little loosey-goosey, some of this stuff. Yeah, or say no, or like it's planned, which I don't know. It's just something about that. So I like that there is some type of like accountability being placed by the community. I think that's good.
Yep.
Okay, enough about Tarkov. I want to talk about something else.
Yes. Let's talk about Grey Zone. Grey Zone Warfare, which launched. And everybody went, how come my favorite streamer who runs on the Cray supercomputer gets, 103 frames, and I ran it on my toaster, and my frames are negative. How's that even physically possible? Not being facetious, like, I do think that people maybe were what's the best way to put it? I think people were maybe it was like not necessarily overly optimistic or anything. I think people just were not really thinking about the performance too much because streamers didn't have that much of an issue, at least like some of the bigger ones. If you came down the rankings down to poor little old me suffering away with 50 FPS in the closed test, then like some people did see that was a problem, and there definitely were people saying that like there were issues or whatever. But I think that's the thing that surprised most people, because they tried to run it on their machine and it just like UE5 just crushes a lot of rigs. And I think one of the big problems is that they've got a very large influx of players from EFT. And a lot of people in EFT, I mean, this is obviously not a majority, but there are still a lot of, probably a sizable minority of people who have upgraded their PCs to like the perfect min-max Tarkov rig, like mine. The 5800X3D and the 3070, which is like, it's right there in the sweet spot of like, that's actually quite cheap, especially when you're on AM4. You just stuck the 5800X3D in. A lot of people had the 3070 already. And the 3070 isn't that expensive a card now, but it runs Tarkov pretty well. Like Streets is, it's borderline, but if you're not streaming, Streets actually runs okay most of the time on that rig as well. Like, I stream it and it's totally all right. And, and then Unreal 5 turned up and literally just like, threw all these computers out of the window and just was like, put them in the bin, buy a new one, because it's just, and especially like people who don't even have the X3D style chips and they're down on like the 56s or whatever. It's like, man, it's tough. And I think like it's a combination between two things, right? It's like new tech, okay, and also probably optimization as well. Actually, probably three things. So it's like new tech, optimization, which is still yet to come, but also like the vision of the game, because in this game, like Madfinger have to keep the playing field level between people with different graphics. So the game just like looks nicer, but you can't get, can't like make the trees disappear or make the grass disappear from a distance. So you've got, jungle foliage from like a mile away rendering even on low. So there's just like, you can't go low enough to make a lot of these machines run well. which is really the biggest issue I think with the whole thing. And then this is the reason why it got slated on Steam in the first place. Like some people were complaining about some other stuff, but the main reason why it got originally it had like mostly negative reviews because people started review bombing this thing because they couldn't play the game because it just wouldn't run. It would run at 20 FPS, 30 FPS. It was pretty nuts. I think it started to balance itself out now a bit. I think are they on mixed reviews now? I don't know.
It's mixed currently, yeah.
Yeah, so like
66% of the what 19 almost 20,000 user reviews just came are positive. 66%.
okay, that's actually better. So it was actually a net negative before. Then when I last looked, it was like 50%, and now it's like 60 odd. So I think it's improving. It's okay, but yeah, they were getting just like slammed for performance in the early days. And also, I also think that people didn't understand the way the graphics worked as well. But like, I'll probably that's kind of a side topic. So, yeah. So that aside, I mean, before I like pass over to you to see what your thoughts are so far, for me, like the game is practically unchanged since the closed test, which was a little disappointing to me. But there was no time. Apparently, this was the plan all along. So I just kind of I guess disagree with the plan. Not necessarily like I don't believe them, whatever. I just don't think that they should have pushed it out. Like regardless of whether people say like, oh, they used the Tarkov stuff as to push it out, blah blah. And they're like, no, it actually was the plan, and I do actually believe them now because but like Rilo's been talking to them in the background as well, and Mara came out on Twitter and said, look, this was our original time. We actually wanted to release this last year, but like UE5 just took us ages, and then it ended up just coinciding. Like that's all well and good, fine, okay, I believe you on that. But I just think they should have left it a bit longer between the two. But anyway, well, what are your thoughts? Before I dive like too deep down off any like particular pivot of this thing, what do you think? You played much, or you just played a bit?
So I didn't really play, but I logged in to like mess around with performance and see if anything changed. And for me, nothing really changed. So also I did ask you prior to me logging in Miss Performance if they changed anything like meaningful, and you basically said no. So I was just like, my friends are playing, but right now like they're playing. By the time they're like getting ready to get off, I'm like getting up, starting my day. So I haven't had a chance to play with them. I don't know if I will because now I'm like really far behind, but I don't know how much it matters. Anyways, getting to my point. Yeah, I mean it's still kind of upsetting that it runs pretty poorly. Like I think where I settled on was like maybe like 40 frames, 45 in the like base, and compromises I made was I increased visual fidelity and lowered my FOV to the lowest setting possible, which I think is like 50.
Oh,
Mainly like having, because like this is the frustrating part for me is, I'm gonna get a little technical, not too technical, is you can't really make the game run any better because the game is forcing so much on you as the user. Like
yeah,
there is no LOD distance setting, right? It's all forced to whatever they have. You technically can change like vegetation, and from my testing it changes like the like if you go in the lowest setting there's like no shadows in the bushes, so like it just looks like a big green blob, and then when you go in the higher setting inside the bushes, or like the medium whatever, it's like now it has like shadows inside the bushes of like the leaves casting shadows on each other, which I wanted because it's like it's probably gonna be easier to detect someone in the bush. Like I played Tarkov, I know I know I need every advantage I get. And then it was like what was the other one that I did? I think it was like shadows. I put on medium or something just because there was like no difference between like low and lowest, and then like medium high was like also like minimal difference, but like the difference between low and medium was like very great. It was like shadows at like 1x resolution, which was like very blurry, and then like you go to medium, shadows were at like 4x resolution, so they were like much more defined on the ground, like the tree casting the shadow.
yeah,
And again, these changes like affected a couple of frames, right? And so it's like the only way I could get the most FPS out, which by the way, for context, I have a 5800. It's not the X3D part like Giga has. Okay, it's not as good, but it's still an 8-core. Anyways, I have a 3070 and 32 gigs of RAM. Okay, like it's not the best, but it's pretty dosh darn good. I mean, it's basically the graphics card is like a year and a half old. Like it's
What GPU
not
did you say you had again? I forget.
3070, same as you.
37. Yeah. I thought you
Yeah.
did.
And I don't know, it's just kind of like it's for me personally it's frustrating because the only way I could get like remotely close to 60 is using or I guess above 60 is using FSR not I mean yes frame generation but just FSR upscaling and FSR frame generation. And in my opinion, FSR upscaling, I'm not sure which version they're using, but I guess it would have to be the 3.0. Maybe it is. I prefer DLSS. I think it, like generally speaking, looks better,
Mhm.
but you do get a bit more frames with FSR depending on the game. I mean, it varies from what I've seen, but in this case, you do get a bit more frames, at least for me and my system. And also, that allows you to use frame generation, which uses frame interpolation, which looks from the previous frame and the next frame to like blend the two together seamlessly. Fine, great. Now I have quote unquote 90 FPS, but like it just at that point, like you're still playing at like sub 60, like it's like 55 FPS. And like, yeah, it looks better. And like it kind of does. And there's like some ghosting stuff with the sights, that's but like it would be much more tolerable if I was getting like 90 FPS base and then I turned on frame generation, I was getting like 180. Cause then it's like, okay, the gap between these frames
Mhm.
is like not that much, and like the input's not gonna be that bad. Like it's a lot more seamless. But like where it's trying to sit now is just not really doing it for me personally. So I just chose to deal with 45, and overall I wish that they would have done one thing. I was like kind of bummed out is like, this is a DirectX 12 game, which great and all. I know that's like the future, things are moving, but for me in my experience, DirectX 11 typically works better. Also, Vulkan typically works better, which is like the Linux graphics API thing. I think that's what DirectX. I'm not super tech. I know enough to be a dangerous and also like talk out of my butt.
I don't know
But
anything really about DirectX at all.
I think it's just like Windows API for your graph. Anyways, doesn't really matter. Point being is with Vulkan, uh, as I said, it typically runs better, and I was like, because I know in like Steam you can, yeah, it's cross-platform. It's not specific to Linux, but um, it's because like Dota 2, for example, you could launch the game through Steam by forcing Vulkan, and that would like give you more frames. Back in the day, I used to do that. And so I was like, oh, maybe there's like some options. So I tried like forcing DirectX 11. There's no DirectX 11. Tried forcing Vulkan. There's no Vulkan. So then I start going in the files, right? This is like where like modding has like gotten to be in some danger zone because I've had to learn some stuff. So I looked at the files and I see within the game files, there's DirectX 12 only. And they got these couple other different like plugins. I assume UE5, like Odin, which is like their chat
Okay.
voice they use for chat. It's like an open source thing. Scala, I think that's like something they developed in house. I'm not sure what it handles, and anyways, etc. So I went and looked up on Unreal 5, and I was like, does Unreal 5 support Vulkan? Like, does it? What's the supports? And it's like, yeah, it supports Vulkan. I'm like, why didn't they include Vulkan? And like, I'm kind of mad because it's like, why did they? Anyways, maybe I'm sure there's probably some reasons, but my point being in this very long-winded rant is I just wish the game, like, I understand optimization is like hard, but like I wish you would have gave more accessibility, because this is what I was getting to is the minimum specs. I do not believe you can get 30 frames on these minimum specs. Where are they? And again, these minimum specs here, this is like there is no like standardization. There is nothing here. Like there is no average frame rate listed. There is no like, oh, minimum means this. It's just like this is what they put up. Okay. They say an i5 8600, which is like is that even a 6? I think that might be an 8 core. I'm not even sure. It's an older CPU. Ryzen 5 2600. I had a 2600X, and I remember playing Apex Legends on that thing, and that thing did not run Apex Legends all that well.
Yeah.
So you trying to tell me it's gonna, and then like, then you're gonna tell me a 1080 Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could believe you could get 30 sitting in the zone. If anyone has these specs and wants to send me a screenshot, I would love to see that because I just am. I'm not even sure if you could get 30. And then the
Yeah.
recommended is like 37 Ti. I mean, Ti is not like it is better than the 370. I get it, but like,
What is the difference?
what's the difference? What?
Yeah, I'm gonna find the difference between the 3070 Ti and the 3070. I'm not actually sure what the difference is.
I think it's faster and it might have more RAM.
No, it's just faster. It's actually the same. They're still
Just
8 gig.
faster. Okay.
Yeah, it's just quicker speeds. You're talking about. Yeah, it looks about, I don't know, 10%
I think
maybe.
it's like equivalent to a 4060 ish, if I recall. I
I'm not
did a
sure.
little bit. Anyways, I'm just I just feel like I am in this, and I'm gonna stop talking here in a second. But I feel like it's really cool that the game looks this good, and like there is some stuff they've done, um, or at least Unreal handles whatever is when you set the textures low at the distance they look low, and then when you get really close to them it swaps out for high quality
Hmm.
textures. Great, but it's still just like I just want to play. Like I feel like 60 FPS with my specs and like what we're realistically talking about here. I know it's a big map. I know, but it's like there's got to be some room for accessibility here because you're kind of like I don't really feel bad that you got mixed reviews at this point for mainly performance. Like I
Yeah,
don't feel bad. I understand it's early access. Great, but I mean it's like that doesn't mean I don't know. I don't know how to say this without being like, you shot yourself in the foot here. It's like if you want to do it this way and you also want to say it's early access, it's like you're gonna get reviews for performance. I don't feel like just because you have early access suddenly you're absolved of all issues with your game. It's like,
yeah.
did we not learn anything from Tarkov?
I think you're right. I think you're right. Insofar as I think the recommended specs, like people, and I know some people have said that the recommended and the minimum specs are kind of like the desired end state or something, maybe. But I don't know. That should either be like stated clearly, or because I just think that the specs are a little misleading, right? It's like decent rigs. Like I wouldn't consider my rig like high end by any means. Like
Hmm.
but it's very like mid tier.
Yeah.
3800, like, yeah, 5800 X3D and a regular 3070 is like, it's not a bad computer. It's actually quite. To be fair, it is relatively cheap now, and it's on older tech, right? I'm like
Yeah.
DDR4 and blah blah blah. But like, it's fine. You can
But you're
play
like,
Streets of Tarkov of all things. I don't have any issues playing really any other games.
hmm
Um, but I don't. To be fair, I don't play those like really intensive single players either. So take take it with a grain of salt. But for PCs like that to kind of be struggling or whatever, and the minimum and recommended specs kind of being like a bit misleading based off the way it is now. I say a bit misleading, probably a lot misleading. Like as many people have said, I think that the recommended specs should probably be the minimum specs, and it should at least have some kind of frame rate on there because it's it's just not really playable for a lot of people. Um, Not in the way that they expect to anyway. I think like if you can hit 60, I think people are kind of okay with that,
yeah.
and mine does just about most of the time. But sometimes it doesn't. And I haven't really figured it out yet. Like one of my problems is kind of a content creator issue, which is that I've rested on my laurels with a single PC stream for a long time, and I've been meaning to move to a multi PC streaming setup for a long time, and I never did it because it's a pain in the ass, and I didn't need to. It wasn't necessary, right, for me to do Tarkov. Tarkov works like adequately. Occasionally, the second stream gets kicked out. Occasionally, because of RAM whatever issues like VRAM
Hmm.
issues and stuff on Streets and Lighthouse. But other than that, it's pretty much okay. Whereas when I play the Grey Zone, just running OBS
Yeah.
and having a multi-stream on that, like just running OBS on its own already starts eating into performance like quite heavily.
Yeah.
And then splitting it out to the second stream means I just like it just doesn't work. No, it just doesn't work. I can't do it. I can't play like that. So I can play most of the time when I'm playing online. It's at like 45 FPS without any frame gen. And I think this is another misstep that they have actually fixed, I think, already, maybe in one of the hot fixes, which was that when, and, most people are on NVIDIA cards, right? Let's be honest as well. Like this last Steam survey that I read, it was 80%, as I said a couple of times, I think, in a few of these casts. So most people are on NVIDIA cards, and there's a couple of things about this. Like the game has FSR in it as standard. It's also got DLSS, and it also has XSS as well, which is Intel's version, as well as I don't know, like a generic one. I don't know what it's called, TSR. I'm not super familiar with
temporal anti-aliasing. I think
it's got TSR, which is like maybe it uses TA's like its AA method, but it's TSR is like another upscaling technology. But I don't know whose it is. I've never heard of it before, so I'm not sure. I haven't done enough digging into it. But I think one of the main problems is that because apparently it's the UE5 upscaling. Okay, fine. So it's like part of the engine. Okay, cool. So what happens when you started in in the game with an NVIDIA card? I think it began on DLSS, which I think was maybe an issue because, as has come to light later, the 30 series cards are not compatible with the DLSS frame generation, right? So okay, so let's just roll this all the way back to the beginning. It basically is to actually get like high frames in this game without a monster rig, you basically have to use frame generation. This is like another layer on top of DLSS, FSR, all this stuff, right? So like if you run the game without any of these things, it's just going to be a complete travesty. You basically have like there are ways of doing it, but you pretty much have to have one of these upscalers on. So DLSS and all these other things work by rendering the game at a lower quality. So if you're on 1440p, it'll render it in 1080, or so. It depends on the quality setting, to be fair. But let's say it'll render it in 1080, and then it will then upscale that back to 1440p using AI, which would be much better than just a normal kind of normal upscaler like back in the day. That then runs on the newer graphics card, so it doesn't have as much overhead. You don't need to use necessarily like GPU 3D for it or whatever, like the regular compute for it. You can use the kind of the AI modules on these chips to do it, and it's like more efficient, and you can run games at higher FPS. Then you've got like frame gen on top of that, which is another AI piece of technology. And what that does is that inserts a frame in between two other frames. So you have two real frames that come out of the game's engine, right? They take your mouse input, they take all the game stuff, and that's being generated by the GPU anyway. The GPU then says, okay, so I've got these two frames. I'm then going to interpolate a frame between these two frames, stick that in between those other ones, and then do it that way, and then send them to the screen. So that way you can like artificially up your frame rate without having to render more in the game's engine. You can use AI interpolation methods instead to make something that looks decent enough, and to the human eye, when it's flicking past at 1/60th of a second, you can't really tell. I mean, there's still ghosting and other stuff. There are some issues where you can see that it's on, but it's better than running at 40 FPS. Now, the problem with these things is, as I said, the DLSS frame gen isn't compatible with 30 series cards. I don't know whether that's a blanket statement, but it isn't in gray zone at least. So you need a 40.
I think it's blanket.
Maybe it's blanket. But you need a 40 series card to actually run DLSS frame gen. Now, most people with NVIDIA cards would rather run DLSS, as you said, because it typically looks better than FSR. Now, most people's solution to the game so far have been like, oh, we'll just use FSR, because FSR frame gen works on every graphics card, and you can even run that on 30 series cards, and that's fine. The irony about frame gen and FSR and all this stuff in the first place is that to make it run really well, you have to have quite high frames to begin with.
Yes.
Which is like, it's like the worst way around. Because in certain circumstances, and I haven't really pinned down exactly why this is the case, and it's like partly my problems too, but adding these frames in, obviously you've got to render two frames, then the AI module's got to kick in, do an interpolation between these two frames, make a new frame, insert it between the two frames, then display it on the screen. That's going to add some latency to what's going on. And this has been the piece that I have been struggling with personally. And this happens a lot. I don't know whether it's to do, I think it's probably just to do with the complexity of like all of the layering that I've got going on. When I'm not on stream, when I don't even have OBS open, the game actually feels quite good. Like there's two parts to that. Obviously the frame rate is higher to start with, and then the latency is lower. I don't know whether, I don't 100% know exactly where that comes from, whether it is OBS or the recording or whatever, because I'm like adding more stuff to the, just the graphical stack that I've got running. I've got the game, I've got OBS, it's encoding, it's doing two encodes, one to YouTube, one to Twitch. There's a local recording, it's then doing frame gen and all this other stuff going on, right? It's like, it's a lot of things going on in the GPU. So maybe that adds to the latency, makes it really bad. But when I had the frame gen on, I was getting like massive input lag. It was really like unplayable, like I'm steering a battleship style. That turned out partly to be because I had some. It's weird because I found a Reddit post about like having frame caps on, about how that makes your input lag go crazy. But I've seen other people saying that you actually want to have a frame cap with frame gen. So I'm actually now not sure. And like even after turning off the frame caps, I still do get it when the game's running like poorly.
What are you using to cap your frames?
I was using NVIDIA Control Panel.
Okay, I don't know how good that is. There is like
some. Yeah.
I mean, my typical advice would be to use Riva Statistic Tuner, which you can get as an optional download with MSI Afterburner, which is anyways. Because it's using a lot of benchmarking stuff, but it seems to be one of the better ones, especially for frame times. And the frame times is like you want to have stable frame times. Like a lot of the in-game engine cappers don't provide that same. Usually they're regarded as bad. I don't know about NVIDIA's. Anyways, continue your story. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Somebody was saying in chat like the reason for the extra latency with frame gen is because they delay the current frame to put the generated one in between, and that's fine, right? That's all well and good. But if you're thinking about, say you're getting 60 frames,
yeah,
you're getting like 60 FPS. So what does that end up being? So that's like 60 FPS is a frame every 16 milliseconds. So if you're delaying a frame by like 16 milliseconds, you could put another one in. Then that's okay. That's fine. And there's a lot of stuff about there on the internet I've read being like, yeah, it does increase latency, but not necessarily to the extent where you can really tell. The problem for me was like I would be turning this thing on and it was like 150 milliseconds. Like the latency increase was like dramatically more than like the gap between frames or something. So like something else was definitely going on there. And my input lag was just like insane. So but it also seems inconsistent, and this is another comment that came from chat that's reminded me, which is quite useful to think about at least, was that there's this like shader cache thing in Greyzone as well. I'm pretty sure where, and as some people said to me, the game seems to run better after like an hour than it does when you first boot it up, which is almost like opposite to EFT. And you can also see this sort of when you drive around in the helicopter. Like my CPU is just like 100% when I'm flying around in the chopper. It's like insane. But it does sort of start to get better after a while. And it's because they've got these like dynamic shaders potentially that get compiled as you're going around. So like if you're in the game for a long time, then you don't have to load as much stuff and everything gets a bit better. I don't know. It's very, very weird. But like even just playing off stream, I've had like inconsistencies. Sometimes I'm struggling to get to 40 FPS, and sometimes I have 65 in the base, and then I put frame gen on and it runs at 100, and it's fine, and there's no latency problems, whatever. And when I was on stream the other day, I had to basically accept like 40 to 45 FPS with DLSS because that was the best that I could do. If I put frame gen on, I couldn't play. Like aiming is just impossible, and I was just like, well, I'd rather be able to aim and have low FPS, and it's kind of the same as you. So it's really weird. And it's I don't know really where to go with it at this point. It's just we're going to have to just see. They have said a few things. So I posted on the 1st saying like the next hot fixes are player persistent data corruption. So I know people have been like losing their heads and their secure containers, which is quite funny, or like access to the stash. So some just like early access things that need to be fixed. Optimizations to increase FPS, disable high-res textures for GPUs with 8 gig of VRAM only, which is, we're the 8 gig VRAM crew here, me and you. And more optimized low settings to increase FPS. And the final point, which is the best one, which is things I don't remember, which I love that. I love that made it to the list. But look, I think the low-end stuff is going to be coming. I feel like that I'm still unsure, though, whether this is actually... Some of these fixes will help for sure. Like I've been fiddling around with graphic settings a lot, and like I'm in a situation a lot of the time where you play with stuff, and no matter what you put it to, it doesn't seem to make any difference. And that like usually smacks of like CPU limitations normally, because it means your GPU is kind of doing whatever, right? Like you see, there's something else, or maybe not even that. Maybe it's like some other bottleneck somewhere.
I mean,
like your CPU could be that. Who knows?
But also very well could still be GPU, because no matter what you do, if you're still using 90% of your GPU usage, it could technically mean your GPU is just so low down the scale, it's always going to be max, right? Like
But
the
if it's
only way to
maxed
know.
and you increase the strain, you should see an FPS drop. Do you know what I mean? Like if I go from low to epic
Oh,
and I don't see any change,
yeah,
usually that would smack me of like CPU bottleneck because,
yeah,
and
I
that
guess you're
happens to me more
right.
so when I'm streaming, when I've got OBS open and blah blah blah. Maybe that's putting a lot of pressure on the CPU. Like I was actually I had a private chat on the old DM on Discord with our good friend Clem,
Hmm.
um, and he said to me, I think I found two reasons why Greyzone's pretty tough on hardware while streaming for both of us, but me in particular, like as in me and not him. When traversing the map, the game not only uses all cores, but also all threads. Heli travel in particular is guilty of this, and easily sees near 100% usage of cores. When you're streaming, there's very little CPU room left for OBS. So it's this kind of thing. Like OBS is probably getting
Okay.
squeezed by that. Like OBS does use some CPU.
Yeah.
Um, and so like
Even
all
when
of this
you
getting, yeah, even when you've just like, got
NVIDIA
it.
encode.
Yeah, OBS still has to use some, and it's
Hmm.
still having to, send out two streams and locally record as well. It's like writing to the disk and stuff. I mean, it
Yeah.
all adds up. So with Tarkov, you've got like headroom to do that, so it doesn't matter. But with this game, it's like, funnily that you imagine that probably does mean it's actually like quite well optimized when you're on the heli ride, because like if something's hitting 100%, then there's nothing spare. No
Hmm.
CPU processing power is going spare. Um, I don't know, man. We're gonna have to see. Like sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. This really spurred me on to wanting to get a second PC going for the stream, which I'm still looking into, trying to do it. I don't want to just like drop $2,500 on a new rig and just use my old one as like
Oh
I could do
yeah.
that, but it's just like why?
Yeah.
I think there's a better way to do it. I'm currently leaning towards getting like I actually like because I've got like a couple of spare machines. One of them I need to like investigate into, but I'm like half tempted just to like buy a 3050 and just see if I can just use the NVENC chip on that to just do it easily because I know it works. It's the same chip as in the
Hmm.
3070, and they're only about £150. Like 3050s are very cheap because they're so underpowered for games. But it's basically the encoding box because that'll take off a lot of lift off this PC, and it'll fix other stuff in AFT too. It'll stop me from crashing
Yeah.
out streets and Lighthouse sometimes. Yeah, and then I could be in a stable situation to decide what to upgrade or not. But like I don't feel like I necessarily like I'd love to, but it just seems a bit like
It's a bit.
not very prudent to go like right. Well, I'm to fix this early access grey zone. I'm gonna for this $35
Right.
game. I'm gonna pay to buy a 7800 X3D. I'm gonna buy
Right.
DDR5 RAM, whole new motherboard, and
Yeah.
a 4080 Super. Uh, seems a bit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, just to reiterate with the frame generation, when I played Cyberpunk, which I've kind of taken a break from, I was like investigating using frame gen, and the only options they had or have right now, I think in the future they're going to add some other, but was using DLSS exclusively for the 40 series. I'm sorry, not DLSS, frame gen. But of course, frame gen only works for 40 series. So, anyways, some modders came up with a really smart idea. It was like, hey, they're gonna eventually add AMD's frame gen software in the future update. What if we just rigged our own? So we'll like use because I think like AMD's like they're more open source, more
Hmm.
like for the gamers. Anyways, so I think you can download the SDK. Point being, they like rigged it to where like you like change your signature on your Nvidia card and and set up FrameGen, and suddenly the game thinks you have it can use AMD's. It's using DLSS, but it's actually, or not DLSS, it's using Nvidia FrameGen, but it's actually using the FSR frame generation. And I used it and I was like, man, this works. It's pretty cool. And because I was getting like 90-ish FPS. I mean, in like the cities, it would like drop to the 60s. It'd be a lot more choppier. There's a lot more stuff going on, and it was working, but I kept crashing. And I come to find out it was because if I wanted to use this tech or this hack or whatever, I had to turn on uh hardware band GPU schedule the hardware.
Yeah, hardware
Man,
accelerated GPU scheduling. Is it that one?
yes, that's the
Yeah.
one. That's the series of words I'm looking for. And for me and my system, I can't turn that on and run OBS at the same time. It will
Neither
crash.
can I.
And as per OBS, it's official. It's not supported. Hardware GPU scheduling is not supported via OBS. Like you go on
Yeah.
their website, anytime you submit a log, it will flag, you you have it on, which I'm like kind of like baffled by, because this is like, I don't know. I don't know. It feels like GPU scheduling is like a Windows 10 thing, and now we're in like Windows 11. But I digress. So, point being, the frame gen, when you, I felt like my benchmark was like, it felt pretty good when I used it. But again, it's like I wouldn't really recommend using it below 60. Like 60 is like okay. You know, I think 90 is like the sweet spot. Like if you're playing a competitive esports game, like I wouldn't use frame gen at all, you know. But like, I mean, maybe you could get away with it if you had like insane, like, you know, 144 frames. I don't know, you cut on frame gen, suddenly you're like 2 something. Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. Anyways, it's just like, I really would I would appreciate if there was something more for that way more people could try it, you know.
Yeah.
And on that note, as you said, I did notice in my testing that, you know, when helicopters were coming and going, the frames were dropping, whereas settings really didn't do much. So maybe it is a lot more CPU bound, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I just would like
sure.
it to run well.
Exactly.
You know?
So that's the thing. Like, it runs much better for me just like on my own offline, but like
Yeah.
recording is just a
Yeah.
problem with this in general. That being said, I whipped through all the starter quests in the starter town. Put a quick guide out about it. Don't know how many people are actually going to watch that video, but like I wanted it there as like kind of a reference for, you know, me being like, okay, here's my one for it. I mean, it did actually. It's a bit awkward because the 3 towns are a little different. So you only have like
That's
one
what I
perspective from like
thought.
one faction, which is a bit weird. Like they're kind of in the same place. The buildings look the same.
Yeah.
The things are in the same position, I think, but they're like everything's like slightly rotated and like a little bit different. But the landmarks are like, you know, broadly the same. So it should still be useful if you know what building you're looking for, like where the thing actually is, what it actually looks like. Because that's like half of the battle from EFT. And so now I've like moved on to some of the more interesting places and more interesting towns and things like that. I mean, I do feel that the questing system, I think we talked about this before, I think it's pretty weak. I don't think it's a very good gameplay loop. And I'm looking forward to things like area capture and that kind of stuff that they did talk about, because right now, like, I don't want to just do a load of Tarkov quests and then go to PvP, because that's what people complain about Tarkov right now. Said all there is left to do is PvP. And why? Because no one has, you know, you can't even, like, it's even worse than Tarkov in some ways, because you can't get big bags and it's even harder to take people's gear out. And why anyway? Because all the stuff's cheap and you just need trader access. It's like all the problems in Tarkov on steroids right now. But like, as they said, only 20 to 30% of the game is actually even put together. And we've got the whole section in the middle of the map. No, there's no like player trading areas. There's no like safe areas. There's no like operating bases for AI. There's no AI events. There's nothing like that. So I'm intrigued. It's not one of those things where I'm just like, are they going to be able to put in stuff that's actually like fun? Do they know what's like? Does anybody know what's going to be like really cool to put in the game and like it'd be actually fun rather than just being? So there's like somebody pointed out to me the other day about like the planned state of the full release, which is on, because I was like, I don't think I'd seen their roadmap or whatever, but it's like on. If you go through their Discord, there are places where you can find it, and this was here before, but I guess it just has. We've got more context now, and so it's like the complete map featuring all locations of diverse biomes, hazardous ground zero area with endgame enemies and new storylines, different types of AI behavior based on enemy type, situation, and weather conditions, faction-based AI with its own agenda involving quests, patrolling, scavenging, and attacking, factions featuring progression systems of diverse reputations, environmental storytelling. I mean, that just sounds like questing to me. Advanced quest system encompassing both main and side storylines. Game-changing, captivating seasonal events. Resource-intensive and survival-focused crafting, which sounds like it could have legs to me. Dynamic weather, changing the gameplay experience. Accelerated day and night cycle. Unique skill system based on players' achievements and not just grind. A customizable hooch, I guess, like a room in the base where, in the quarters where you do like crafting and whatever. Enhanced weapon customization, fully customizable gear, complex trading system for players, and other new features developed from community feedback. So like that's who knows, right? But that's what they say they want to have. Like most of this stuff is, I wouldn't say is anything to do with the gameplay loop, which I think is actually the most important part. It's like a bit about quests, you know, some stuff about progression or whatever, but like most of it's about day-night cycle and, you know, different AI and different things. Like that's fine. That's all good. Obviously, the game needs these things too, but they're not fundamental as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean? Like they are fundamental
No,
and they need to be in the game. It's like it's not the reason we play. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's like where I feel like the contention's been. Is I've seen a lot of people criticizing the game, and then like a lot of people come and defend and be like, "No, it's PVE only. It's not Tarkov. You don't understand." And like, okay, sure, and that's great, but like even that for me is kind of confusing because if it's like who's this game for? Because I feel like the streamer complaint is, yeah, the first bit's a slog, but then once you get to the PVE parts, it's much better. And then the follow up from that is like, it's not really that great because you're just like I can think I watched Friendly Guy and he said in his opinion it was like you get so much money from the quest, the gear, you can't even loot the gear. Like you get into PvP, it's like you die. It's like you didn't even lose anything. You just run back, like all whatever. And then it's like, oh, but it's PvE only. And then it's like that's where I'm like confused because if it's PvE first, and like why include the PvE side of it? And then it's like if it's I don't know. It's just like there's like this weird conflict. If you're like trying to cater to PvE crowd, I can see it for like the first group of quests because all the factions are isolated on the corners of the maps doing their starter quests. And then I
Yes.
guess the thought is like if you're really invested in the game and then you're gonna keep playing and then you're gonna eventually do PvP, but if the game's like you see what I mean?
Mm.
It's like they're trying to like catch all people in the loop, and I just don't know if that's gonna work out. I'm not sure. 'Cause
Yeah, yeah, it's weird. It is weird. Like another thing is like Friendly Guy's right about his take on the game, and the
Mhm.
creators will get bored if there's not. It's just so here's 150 quests and then do those. Then it's like okay, well that's it. But like that's not going to be the end of it. Like we know that isn't like in its existing format. Like sure, but there needs to be things that are repeatable and I don't know, sort of like cyclical. Somebody said it the best the other day on my stream where they were like, we want this to be, it would be amazing if this game turned into some kind of like, almost like some kind of like DayZ version of like Planet Side or something. It's got like
Mhm.
faction control, capture on the map, like
Yeah.
an ongoing battle
Yeah.
between the three PMC factions, like something like that. Would be like super sick. I'm like, yeah, that'd be really cool. I'm a big fan of those kind of games. They're very, very cool. There are a few. There is some extra stuff that we should talk about as well, which is like what Mara was talking about the other day. So they did like a launch day stream, and he basically Mara being Marek, what's his name? Marek Rabas being the CEO and the kind of the big guy, the main guy. He's Nikita of this game basically, and he went through a bunch of stuff, which is kind of interesting. And Church has got some notes from a friend. I've got some notes, and we didn't talk about this already, did we?
No.
Okay.
We mentioned, I think maybe you mentioned one or few things in
Maybe
passing.
mentioned a couple of things, but yeah, I mean that's basically where they said that only 20% of the game is
Yeah,
done. Like the AI of the game is a placeholder, that kind of thing. So like, do you want to go through a few bits from your list, and I'll just like I'll flesh some stuff out here and there.
sure. I just like some quick one-liners. Haven't stopped adding servers. They pulled an all-nighter to get the release out. Optimization and performance is highest priority right now. In the week since the streamer test, they've made it so you can shoot from helicopters and are vulnerable for a brief moment while disembarking. Our plan on adding grenades from helis, ways of working on ways to change up the helicopter path thing so you can't just pick the perfect spot to ADS against the heli incoming. It's a good example of getting feedback that helps them know what's most important to get in first. Controller bindability is coming in the first patch. Currently, so there's talk about like this how death works. So game has a Dark Souls like death mechanic where you can go retrieve your gear off your body, but if you die on the way back to your gear's lost forever. They said they're open to changing this, but the goal is that death matters. Weather effects are months out, but they are excited for it. Camps, places to control stash, anomalies. Someone asked about will there be anomalies? He says there will be things. Turn off VSync. If you have having server issues, select your own server. Game doesn't have auto select. Blah, blah. Okay. Unreal 5.4 update isn't quite isn't in yet. When it's stable, might give a decent performance boost. His own personal observation: have the guys brought out to interview have all joined the studio in the last 6 months. They have been hiring a lot. all I got. Courtesy of shout out to Shishbi, my good friend who's constantly he's got another early access third person extraction shooter for me to sign up for the beta for, and you bet your ass I signed up.
Which one was that one?
I don't even remember the name, like Extinction or something. I can't.
There was Exaborn, which was
That might
popped
have
up
been a.
like today or something, or yesterday. I
That
think
might
people will
have,
sign up to that one.
yeah, that might have been it. Let's see.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, there's like so the LZ thing is okay. There's still issues with like the LZ camping and stuff, but and it's not even necessarily LZ camping. It's like you call in a
right.
chopper, and it takes 4 minutes to get to you. You stand by the LZ, and an enemy chopper turns up. It's like, what am I supposed to do, right? Like, I'm nearby anyway, and they're just getting out. Yes, you're now immune. Yes, you can now shoot out of the heli, but I feel like that doesn't necessarily make the situation that much better. Like being invulnerable for
Mhm.
2 seconds is good, but if somebody's like up in the hills, you get dropped off in the middle of a field. So 2 seconds gives you 2 seconds extra grace period before you die a lot of the time. And I just feel that a lot of people have said this, that there should be just more LZs kind of like as like
Yeah.
one layer back as well, so that you can fly into a hotspot or POI without anybody hearing you come in. And then you can like take the longer trek on foot. Once you've got a few of the other ones open, you can sort of do that because a lot of the points of interest are kind of close to each other, and you can take like I don't know the north heli landing zone for one place, but instead of going south into that point of interest, you can just leave and go north, which does make it like kind of harder. Like people typically aren't camping LZs on purpose,
Mhm.
so unless you just get unlucky and you turn up when somebody else is waiting for theirs, normally people are like busy actually in the points of interest themselves. So usually you won't just get like camped straight off the heli. But obviously, if you go into the town, people can be waiting for you already. So if you just don't do that and you go the way they don't expect you to, then you can turn up to other points of interest without anyone knowing you're there. So that's kind of the idea. I think that's what the devs meant when they said like, oh, just walk. When people were saying, oh, we're getting camped at LZs, I think that's kind of what they meant. It's like go to a different one, come in. But like none of them are immune from the camping thing. It's not like there's one in the middle of nowhere where no one would ever want to be.
Yeah.
It's like all of the infills are all exfills.
Well, because they're all shared,
Yeah, they're
right?
all shared and they're all really close to the point locations as well. Like they're just kind of too close. So we'll see how that goes, but we'll see what's going on. I think they made an upgrade already, so that if you fight at another PMC factions like main HQ, you start getting like mortared now, which is quite
Hmm.
cool. I did think it was going wrong the other day. I think I saw somebody was talking in like the creator Discord about getting like mortared in their own base and everyone was just dying. So I think I think that was some glitch. But yeah, it's supposed to like mortar you now, and it's a lot harder to attack the bases, which is cool. I think you get mortared if you stay in the same place too long. So like you can't just like snipe from the hills and snipe people in the base. I think that was the idea. The stuff that I'm like the most interested in is definitely things like capturing fobs out in the
Yeah.
the wild, which is like then it's your faction, and you unlock I don't know like maybe a vendor or like spawn points, LZs, like whatever it might be, and different camps being fought over by different factions for like different benefits, so you all feel
Yeah.
like you're playing together. Like that's the kind of like gameplay loop that I think is going to be really
Yeah.
interesting. Like
Yeah.
mounting an operation on an enemy like fob to like gain it for some benefit or whatever, or some reason, and as well as like some PvE events where you could go and hijack a truck or ambush somebody or ambush something. Even just like AI walking through the world would be better. But like that kind of thing is like that's the good stuff that they did. He didn't talk too much about it on that call. He talked about it a little bit, but there was like there was like a Discord call at one point with them on. I don't know if this one was actually public, but this was a little bit a little bit of a while ago. It was around the same time. But anyway, you talked a little bit about fobs or whatever, and like I tried to ask for like what about more gameplay loop stuff, and people were like, he's already talked about that. And I'm like, I know, but I want to know more. Like this is the most important question. Like I don't really like I care about the other stuff,
Yeah.
obviously, but like this for me, this is the reason for it to exist.
Well, that's just where I'm confused, to draw back to the PvE thing I was trying to explain earlier is like I feel like if you want to make a linear experience PvE only, there's like a certain way to do this, right? But this is like you're making a live service, but it's PvE first, but there's like PvE, but it's like supposed to be like far and few between, which I get, that makes it like very intense, like a very special moment. But like it's like they're like doing a halfway house between both. It's like it's gonna be a live service game, so like I mean, you could play DayZ right now and run around for 2 hours and get PvP, right? But like DayZ's not #1 on the Steam charts. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like I don't know. It's just I'm not sure. I'm in agreement with you. It's like there's got to be for me, especially for me personally. Like there's got to be something more because I just don't see myself slogging through. I mean, like, hey, if you like the game, if you like the setting, more power to you. But for me,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like,
Exactly. That's fine. I think like, and the reason why it needs to have more reason to exist in some way is that it needs to have that kind of like some kind of addictive kind of loop that makes you want to think like, damn, I really want to play today. And
yeah,
in Tarkov, that's like, you know, partly questing, partly improving and just like experiencing all the different places and becoming familiar with the game. But it's also the economy, right? Making money and having the number go up. And that's kind of what you really deem your success. Like successful raid, oh, we made 1,000,000 rubles. Like, oh, damn, we lost like a 300k kit. You know, it's like that. That's the overarching theme of Tarkov, which these guys don't want to go for, and that's completely fine. But if you would just want to run around and do PvP, there's like a billion different games you can do that in. So it's like, where's the
yeah,
unique part of it? Like, okay, it's in Unreal and it looks good. Okay, fine. But like, there needs to be like a gameplay reason for the PvP. There's more so than just we're going to task, and the tasks are there so you can get better stuff, and they incidentally allow you to bump into PvP. It's like I just feel like it needs to be more than that. So those are the things that I'm really looking forward to more than anything else. Like I'm desperate to see what's coming for that kind of thing. They've got a really cool setting for all of this, but
yeah. I think
especially like the first set of tasks. Like I've only just started going to the other places, and I've only run into PvP. Like I actually ran into it quite a lot the other day when I was going up to Bampar. But like other than that, in the starter town, obviously you don't run into any. So you play like the first sort of 6-7 hours, you don't like. There's no chance of PvP. It's like I feel like it's a bit of a slog, even after doing it the second time. And maybe that's just because we're washed Tarkov players. I don't know, but
there's definitely, I'm sure that's definitely part of it. I'm sure like
yeah,
people who are new to the genre probably are like having, they probably have less grievances towards tasking in general. But
yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll say about the tasks as well is that they are okay. Like I've been doing them kind of without like I've not been like looking at stuff necessarily. Like on a couple of them, I've like looked at a hint here and there for some of the early ones when I was first doing it in the closed test because that some of them were just a bit annoying. But like the latest one I did, it was like you have to look around and they're like sort of fair in the description at least. So it says you have to look for a mound of soil and like a some birds things. You find like a bird house, whatever. Like it's like once you see it, you're like okay, I know what you mean. And I think we're almost so used to Tarkov just like go to wiki, like just monkey brain, like robot mind. Okay, where is task location? Let me go there. They're like, it's actually unusual for me to like have that flick the other way around and be like, okay, let's read the thing. All right, we have to find a well. Okay, well, where would the well be in the village? Like things like this. Like you never have to think about tasks like that in EFT. So to have to
well, because
think
they're already
like
written up for you on the
exactly. So it's
wiki.
like, okay, let's try and deduce this
Hmm.
ourselves first. Like I can't really look. I could go and look. The best way to, if you want to speed run it, the best way to do it is just to I think there are some videos now on almost all the
Yeah,
quests, but
yeah.
do like just control F through the Discord and people like kind of know. But you have to like filter through the information. Or at least you did in the early days. Yeah. Now you can
Hmm.
probably go and just look at a video for it. But I think Goes has put together like pretty much every task. Like he's level like 30 something. We're doing like 24-hour streams and have got through like so many tasks. So he's just been putting like basic quest guides up on his YouTube for that. So if anybody does want more advanced quest guides, then go to Goes' channel, GOES, and he's got stuff there. But like for me, it's like at least I like to give it like a try. I don't mind looking if I'm like I have a look and then I'm like I don't know, and so then I go
Yeah.
and check. Like I'm not an ardent like I will not look at the thing. I'm not that fussed. And if somebody in
Hmm.
chat comes in and says, oh, somewhere in the north, like go and have a look. Like it's hard enough to read the instructions from chat and actually use that information sensibly. Oh no, go that way, go this way. But everyone's on a 5-second lag. Everyone's telling you a different thing. It's hard enough to use that information anyway. So I don't mind people like, oh, there's 4 of them, one south, one north, one west. Like it doesn't break my immersion or anything like that. Like I'm not bothered. That's fine. So I'm sort of like looking for them, but like if people tell me, I don't really mind either. So I do think that the quests are definitely better than Tarkov, but I think that because it's the same loop and it will ultimately just be wikified, I think that
Yeah.
there's it's not there. It can't be the ending game loop.
Yeah, I just feel like it's an outdated, I don't know,
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
And I mean, with the age of the internet, like, I mean, single player games, you know, sure. Um, but even then, it's like as you said, you, the user, have the choice. And of course, you do a multiplayer, but it's like, why would you do a linear experience of multi? I mean, I don't know. It's just, that's why I like the live service, because again, to me, this is like a live service game. I don't know if it's like technically gonna I don't know how long it's gonna be, whatever. But it's just like doing these linear stuff in live service is like kind of
Yeah.
rough.
And I think also when we're talking about like PvE games, if you're talking about actual single player games, then you're talking about quests or like missions or storylines or whatever. Then like,
Characters, NPC,
well,
dialogue,
yeah, then
voicing,
like,
lore.
then the first things you start to think of is like, well, would I rather be playing The Witcher 3? Would I rather be playing Baldur's Gate? You know,
Right.
and that's the thing. It's like if you're really talking about PvE questing and storyline, like that's the competition.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's incredibly hard to do, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like they kind of need to decide where they need to fall on this line, right? As you say, it's a bit of a mix of like PvE and kind of offline without the PvP, but PvP is there, but the PvP feels kind of pointless, and the PvE questing doesn't feel necessarily that rewarding. It's like you try and make something for everybody, ends up being for nobody, sort of situation. So I hope it doesn't go that way. I'm sure there's gonna be some cool stuff coming. It's such a good base that
That's what I was gonna
they've
say.
got so much further than everybody else in
Yeah.
starting that I have to be optimistic. I have to be. I just feel like this would be the most criminal waste of potential ever if it ends up just being a flop and nothing comes of it and there's no engaging gameplay loop. I'm gonna be genuinely sad.
Yeah. I yeah, I mean I hate that you say that now because for me personally, I'm not as optimistic about this game, but I do agree they have a very good like base found. Like I love the conceptual idea of having like factions in the game. Like I've always kind of liked PMC factions, the ID and Tarkov. But when I hear Nikita talk about it, I get kind of scared. But
Yeah.
conceptually, I love that. I would love like I have a dream. To, anyways, but that's like Fallout New Vegas is like praised for its factions. I watched a video recently talking about you know applying the political compass to factions and not and Fallout New Vegas because apparently there's a site online you can go like it'll ask you some serious questions and it'll plot you on this like political chart. So they did it for like the factions because they knew the factions and it's just super interesting because there's like these factions in like a wasteland, effectively a post-nuclear state. Everything's a chaos. And you got these different societies and like new cultures being formed, and it's just like how they behave and they feel all unique. I was like, oh man, something. But that's all like someone sat down, writ all that out, and it's one player in that environment experiencing it, and it's all a shared experience individually. It's like, did you play this game? Yeah, wasn't that cool when blah 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 did X to blah blah, and then dude was like, no, bro, get out of there. Wasn't that poggers? Yeah, bro, that was
Yeah.
That's why it's like, dude, the factions they got, like the potential there. Like if you could each person be your own NPC and come up with your own, system of beliefs. Like we don't like people who use Western guns or what Eastern guns. We're all American boys here or something. I mean, not nothing too extreme, but something within the game world that'd be
Yeah.
fun. That would be really fun. I would love
Yeah.
it's like one giant RP server, but it's like game mechanics built in. If they could pull that off, dude, that'd be insane.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's just like, yeah, there's so much. There's so much that the game's got going for it as a baseline, but it needs
Yeah.
it's a baseline, right? They need to build the house on top of the
Hmm.
foundation. But the foundations are pretty solid, and by the time that this thing is actually ready, like people will have upgraded a
Yeah.
bit, and UE5 will be a bit less new, and they'll have done some optimization work on the game, and blah blah. But I mean, it's a technical miracle that there's no loading screens and the whole map is just there, and you can
Hmm.
fly around it in a chopper. Like it's crazy the amount that loads in and out as you're flying around, like the different towns and stuff, and that there's no loading. It's magnificent. So they've gone the right way about it. They've got the fantastic base. And I was talking about this on stream a bit, rather than being like, oh, we're making these maps, then maybe we'll link them together one day, and then 8 years down the line, you're like, oh, okay, we can't do that. They've kind of gone right. Well, we're gonna put the tech in place to get this stuff working from the baseline, and then we're gonna build from there. The one thing that actually makes me feel quite optimistic about these guys is that unlike EFT, who has been in beta forever, and Battlestate Games are basically like learned from scratch, like how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
These guys, like the pace of development is actually quite quick. It's a lot faster than I thought it was going to be, and they
Hmm.
do seem to be adding stuff quickly. So we'll see what happens. They said that every 6 months there's going to be a wipe and there's going to be a major content patch then, but they're going to be adding stuff throughout the wipes anyway as well. We'll have to see. But like, I've been surprised. Like they said, oh, we were behind schedule. We expected to release it like last year or whatever. But
yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, do they have like a release window they're looking for? Did they say?
I'm not sure for the actual game. I don't know.
Like,
but they wanted to release. Yeah, I don't know. They wanted to release early access at the end of 2023.
Yeah, I feel like I remember hearing that
yeah.
even prior to like this game being more relevant this past couple of months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'd be interested to see fast forward a year what the game looks like. So
yeah, I'm going to be following it and seeing what's going on. Like it's I say like, oh, I'm a bit like, oh, whatever. But there's not really that much content in it already, blah blah blah. But I mean, I've played 38 hours already. There's more than I thought actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've not been grinding it really at all. Like I'm only just out of the starter quest mainly. But I also think that it's probably one of those games that's better to play with people as well.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's smart of them to kind of set up that way, where it's like, because that's kind of like Helldivers too, where it's like it's really a game meant for your buddies. Like it's like classic sitting on the couch gaming. So yeah, this feels like the very same idea. You get 4 in a squad, you go do these missions, work together, get all immersed. And I feel like one of the reasons why one of my buddies loves this game so much is because he gets to like fully embody the tactical squad leader. He's like, I mean, literally in Helldivers, like without him as squad leader, me especially, I'm clueless. I'm just like, I see enemy, I shoot. Like, no, the objective. I'm like, but I'm shooting my gun. Let me shoot gun.
Yeah. But yeah, it's cool. I'm still yet to get to 2 traders. Yeah, I didn't get it in the closed test because I didn't play enough, and then I'm not quite got there yet self either because it does take a while solo. Like I died a lot more, obviously going out into the harder areas. Firstly to AI because it's hard to shoot them when you've got huge latency. Plus they're quite deadly, I will say.
Yeah.
But also just like to other people. I tried to go to, so of the PvP areas, the first one that's kind of like notorious, at least for me, the Bampar is quite bad because it's like the tiny village and there's lots of people there and it's near one of the other bigger areas. But the one that I find just like horrific is YBL, which is, I said last time, it's like the D2 bunker. But because it's so small, there's not many ways to actually enter into it. It's just like quite a PvP hotspot because players are just like, they're going to be in that little compound or in the bunker and that's it. So it's just concentrates everyone into one place. So I tried to go there for the first time yesterday, and like I got shot like through one of the entrances by somebody who was already inside. I was like, oh damn, okay. I tried to run back and get my body because I had some crap stuff on it, and they'd like snuck around and just like waited on it for me. I was like, oh no, like you took my starter M4. Like I know it's like some horrible AK I was using. I think. I was like, man, I can't believe you waited for me and my knife to shoot me again. Like really.
Well, that's the interesting component because it's like I feel like that would be a common thing because it's like you could just loot the body and leave, or you could just wait for them to come back, and if they bring gear, then you get more gear.
Yeah,
So I don't know, something about that. I feel like despite all the other stuff we've talked about and like the good base and the issue performance, I do feel like genuinely speaking, they have a couple of different various issues, quote unquote, that they need to solve or like figure out. And I think that's gonna be a challenge. This is really like no clear answer for some of these things. It's kind of may just be a case of we got to learn through experience. All right, we did this. That didn't work. That led to this result. Time to switch it up. Let's try this instead.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll see. They've got a lot of scope, especially with the ground zero section in the middle of the map. Like they could do all sorts of stuff there. Like I don't know how like sci-fantasy they want to get with it all. It's tricky because we've got all this like lore in EFT, and nobody knows what any of that really means. Because do any of the events mean anything? Do any of the quests really mean anything? Do any of the raid series and the Rigi series does any of that mean anything? Like until we get to 1.0 and we have the storyline. Who knows, right? So this game is sort of similar. It's like, oh, we're going to play the game and the storyline's in the middle, but like you can't play that yet. Like, okay, we don't really know what that's even about. We don't know what the EFT storyline really is about.
Not really, no.
It's like I at this point I almost feel like I don't want to talk too much back into Tarkov, but I almost feel like the storyline's gonna be like a big disappointment now at this point. just going to be like, okay, you can just leave through this way or the other way, or go through terminal, and okay, there you go, that's it.
It
And then
was
I was
all a
like, what
dream. You
yeah,
wake up.
where's this huge, like, where's the main campaign? Where's the da da da?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the side quests were the real quests after all this time. So yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, it's another one of these games that's got scope, got
Mhm.
potential, and it's the, it's the Schrodinger's game of that these games have turned into. Like, until you look and know, it could go any which way. Like, it could turn into a survival style game with the crafting. It could turn, more PvP centric.
Mhm.
It could end up very much like PvE raids, or like, who
Mhm.
knows? Well, it depends what they do and how they put it in.
Yeah.
I wish we knew a bit more about the vision of these games now at this stage, rather than it being a bit nebulous. But as they said, right, they're going to change stuff based on community feedback too. But like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they have an idea of what they want to do. But I don't know. Some people in chat were saying that apparently, Devil Dog Gamer, who by the way is one of the community managers for this game, which is quite cool, was saying that they want 8 months of early access, which would take us into January. So like, that'd be fast. Like, for us Tarkov players, that's like a wipe and a half. So
I mean, if they could do it,
yeah,
kudos to them, and I'll be curious to see what it looks like.
yeah,
Well, yeah, it'd be interesting.
yeah. And that's from alpha into like beta. So obviously that's not like full release, but that's, going from where we are now, like the full jank, to, I guess, like the fleshed out game, I suppose, and they'll be still adding
Core
stuff.
features, core mechanics, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then they can add like more gameplay stuff afterwards, I guess. But I don't. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
One thing I meant to mention earlier, we were talking about performance and hardware that I forgot, was one thing I did try, okay, and it was very sketchy. I crossed the line never crossed before. I got into dangerous territory. I was so determined trying to get the game to run in a different, not DirectX 12. I was trying to get Vulkan to run. I was like, I found a Google result where it's like, yeah, you can just replace these files and use this like hacked version of Vulkan to like trick. It's like you're literally just replacing the DirectX file .dll from our DirectX file .dll, but it's supposed to run Vulkan. And I think it's called DXVG. It's used for like older games. Anyways, point being is like I was like, I'll give it a shot. I've done some modding. I'm kind of a modder now. So I replaced the files, launched the game. Game didn't launch. It gave me an error, and then Easy Anti Cheat gave me an error saying these files have been tampered with. I was like, oh, did I do that? Surely not me. Time to uninstall, reinstall. Cover the evidence, nothing was seen. So yeah,
Oh my word!
don't do what I did.
Yeah, yeah. Don't come close to the brink of getting banned by EAC
Yeah,
for
I
file
mean,
tampering.
kudos to it worked. It did. It did not. It sussed me out. Like,
I'd hope it would detect just copy and
these
pasting files.
these files are named similarly, but the size and information inside is very different. But yeah.
Oh man. Oh yeah. So the last thing I wanted to say, I guess, about Grey Zone was that they did do a hotfix which added the ability to wipe your character. So that's now on the main menu. So if you pick the wrong faction, you can now wipe your character. Before you were just like stuck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Whereas now you can start again and go back to the character creator or whatever. Because some people like played the game and then their friends picked it up and went, "Oh, this faction looks cool," and then they were like, "Oh, so did you pick this?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I've already picked my faction." Like, "No, you dumbass! Now we can't play together." And like, a lot of people were in that kind of situation. So at least they could do that. It's on a 1 hour cooldown apparently. So yeah, if you spawn in without a head or without a secure container, you can like refresh your account. I think if you have no secure container, there's a form that they want you to fill out that you can get it back if you've got progression. I think you can just wipe your account if you're like right at the start, but if you want to keep your progression so far, you can fill some form out and they'll like fix it.
Have you seen the meme of a bug where their character's gun is like 4x the size?
Yes.
I'm gonna see if I can find it. So I think it was in ScavTalk Discord. Someone posted it. It was just so funny to me. It looks so goofy, but
It is good.
it works because the character models, like their arms are like appropriately stretched. It's like whatever they're using, it's working. You know. Just,
Yeah, quite fun to see something that's like a bug, but then like works appropriately with the game systems. It's like, okay, that's actually quite cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Ah.
Thank you. Shout outs to fail number one chatter. It's so big, and look at his arm is like stretched to the max on the foregrip, but he's still holding it properly. It's golden.
It's like the fully auto Barrett or something.
Anywho. All right. Well, I've been doing some Fallout modding. I'll just be quick here. Fallout New Vegas. I've heard so many great things about the game. It's like the praise for being the RPG of all RPGs in the Bethesda series, Fallout specifically. But it's like, man, that game is really dated and really jank and like has a troubled history. It's like rush development. You know, they were like a third party studio, Obsidian was like used to work on, and they used this engine, and it's like there's just so many things wrong with it, and yet it's still like a crown jewel held up. You know, but yeah. Just trying to get that thing running is, I mean, it runs, but like doing all the appropriate steps, because it's just like, again, it's almost 15 years old, Giga, and it's like the links that the modding community has gone. It's like, okay, you need this script extender, and then there's like 5 other like extensions of that script extender, but they're like all named oddly. Like this one's called Fallout New Vegas script extender, NVS, whatever, blah blah blah, acronym, right? But then like these like newer ones, like extensions of extensions, is like Johnny Commando's guitar, and it's like, how am I ever supposed to know this is like required? And it's like required for like a bunch of mods, and it's like, but if you look at it just the word, it's like, what is that? Why do I need a guitar in the game? You know, it's just like, it's so wild. But yeah, it's getting there. There's the really cool stuff is, more recently the game doesn't have shadows. Like there's 0 shadows being casted by default, which makes it look really dated. But there's this project called Fallout New Vegas Reloaded, and I haven't like actually got into the meat of it, because I've been following a different guide that's called Viva New Vegas, which is like core mods to get the game A running good, and then B, these are like considered essential to play the game, like restoring cut content and tons of bug fixes, etc. And apparently they're able to like inject somehow shadows in the game, and like ambient occlusion and lighting and the depth of it's just like so much stuff, and it's like super performance taxing because it's a old game, old engine, all this stuff. But like getting the game to look very modern, I want to get like as if they modernized the game, was released today, but I'm like doing the work of assembling it. It's like,
yeah,
I'm assembling Exodia, trying to create this perfect experience, and the joke is, it's like, I finished modding the perfect game. Oh, that was fun. On to the next thing. Like never touch it. Because I kid you not, I tried this 2 years ago. I have some mods downloaded from 2 years ago where I never made it past. Because dude, it's like a totally different world getting into the modding stuff. There's like so much jargon. There's like so much stuff you gotta like watch out for, and gotchas. It's like, oh my god, it's crazy.
I can imagine.
But excited to check it out, experience it. I was telling Giga too before the show, I was watching the Fallout show because it's been everywhere and people seem to really like it, and it's good so far. I was like, okay, this is a good excuse to try that modding thing again.
Yeah, and if you've got Prime, then you can just watch it for free. So it's like, well, you may as well just like watch the show.
Yeah.
That's like, as I said, I'm like 3 episodes in. I've been like trying to find the time. It's been tricky, but it's been good. It's been good so far.
They're longer episodes. I was kind of surprised. Like, man, these are like an hour long.
They're quite long. Yeah, I'm always trying to find like good sci-fi stuff, because, and this is like gaming. So this is special. It's like different. I like the fact that they've kept it quite gamey, the way that the environments are, and the way that like the storyline almost feels. It's like, you walk into the town or whatever, and it's just like it feels like a game, even though I've not played Fallout, which is like weird. Like I can tell the vibe and I like it. It's like
Yeah,
feels like
yeah.
home, you know. But I'm always on the lookout for like good, like proper sci-fi stuff
Hmm.
because there's not actually that much. There's not actually that many like good sci-fi things out there. There's a lot of I don't know. There's not that much hard sci-fi. Let's put it that way. Like Interstellar is kind of like the crowning jewel of the whole of that like particular genre.
Yeah.
But there's like not that many good things really. Stuff that's like realistic and kind of like hardcore sci-fi, which is like that's my favorite kind of thing. There's like a handful of like random stuff that I've watched. Expanse in particular. Yeah, people say
Oh
in the
yeah, I
chat.
watched that a
Expanse
bit.
is good. Expanse is good. Like I guess not really like sci. Well, it is. I guess yeah, it is. It is sci-fi. It's more like survival, like The Martian. That's also very good. I like that. I watched Arrival recently. That was very good. So I'm like going through kind of like the big ones. You know, the ones that people are like, oh yeah, this is these are decent.
Hmm.
So that's just it's good. But yeah, I like the fact this has popped up out of nowhere and it's like, oh, this is sci-fi and it's cool and it's gamey and it's fun and I like it. Outside of all this like other stuff, just to finish off, there was like there's like another piece of like random drama that's appeared today out of nowhere, which is just like
Oh
big grown
no.
territory, which is Helldivers. Have you
Huh?
seen the latest thing? So Helldivers is like in association with Sony, and at the beginning of the game when you downloaded it, it was like, oh, you have to sign into PSN, and then you press like skip or whatever, or like press X, and then you didn't have to, and then you just signed in through Steam. And apparently now is the day of reckoning where it is being enforced that people sign in and link their Steam account up to PSN. And a lot of people don't have a PSN account, and the PSN has a pretty tacit history of like hacks and losing people's information and all this stuff. And so people are quite upset
Oh my
about
god.
like it doesn't like for most people like it doesn't really matter, right? For most people,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things. It's like it's whipping up into a bit of a frenzy because it's like, why would they decide to enforce this now? It's like pointless.
Well,
They're gonna,
probably Sony
yeah,
dropped the
it's Sony
corporate
things, right?
hammer on
Of
them.
course,
You
of
know.
course. So people are sad about that, and they're just like, oh, Helldivers was you were the chosen one. No. So the whole gaming world's just falling apart. But oh well, I'll probably just grit my teeth. I probably have one. Like I had a PlayStation 3. I've
I
got
don't.
PlayStation 3
I don't know if I ever made it. Yeah, I
up
mean,
there on the shelf.
oh, do you?
So I've got a PlayStation account
Okay.
whenever. I don't know when. So I'll just have to. I don't even know. Like it's on some old email probably. I don't know what the password is. I have to like reset that and link it up. But no, I've had one for a while, so I guess I'll just do that and then just move on with my life. But people are kind of up in arms about it. Yeah, up in arms. As seems to be the gaming community's default stance these days, for
Yeah.
various valid reasons. I will admit, but the gaming world is becoming, just furious with everything.
Time to rise up, gamers.
Rise up from our gaming chairs and go outside. We'll never do it. We'll never do it.
All right. Well, on that note, everyone, rise up, gamers. Go for a walk. No, I don't think so. Yeah, we'll conclude it there. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we will see you all next week.
Bye bye.